Father, we thank you tonight for your grace and your mercy upon our lives. We just lift you up in praise. We ask that you touch and bless and move tonight. Grant us wisdom to deal with the issues at hand. We could be not only good public servants, but be good stewards of yours as well. Guide and direct us, we ask it in Jesus' name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you have not already done so, please sign in. All right, council, in front of you, you have the minutes. Please take a few minutes here to remember.
Your mic's not on.
Mike? Can I have a motion to accept the minutes?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of last month.
Is there a second?
I will second. Go ahead.
Motion made by C, seconded by Amy. Any questions? All those in favor? Motion carried. Okay, moving on. Sheila, did you have the finances that you want to?
I provided you with a monthly, just the month of March. And then I also did from January to March the 31st. However, obviously those numbers changed because both claims and payroll hit last Wednesday, so everything is significantly less. But I will start printing out the month prior plus the date that the meetings are, so you can have a comparison for the month plus the current numbers. Other than the funds that are negative, I will be contacting each of the departments. Most of them are grants, but we have got to get a handle on them pretty soon. Some of them end in June, some of them end in September. So I just want to make sure that we're not overspending them.
Any questions on the finances? All right, moving on. I hereby open the public hearing for additional appropriations. You have those in front of you. They were voted on to advertise last meeting.
So on the $30,000 appropriation, we were looking into that because we weren't sure where that came from, why it's there. What did we find out with that?
It has never been paid from either one of the 911 funds. It is my understanding that it is the sheriff's department. And for whatever reason, it does not appear to have been budgeted in for this year. Thus, the $30,000 additional appropriation request.
So where was it paid last year? Like who paid it last year?
We do not show it being paid anywhere.
Year before that.
So does this company want us to pay them back for 2 years of unused, I mean, how do, somebody's got to get paid somewhere, and why was it not paid, I guess, is my question.
If there wasn't any bills submitted or turned in, or we weren't billed, or it was just part of, the Central Square bill is what you're talking about, $30,000 Central Square bill. It's for the IDAX and some things, but it has never been paid. Never paid that company for anything.
And we do have a contract with the company?
We do, our CAD is through that, so all of our calls for service is through Central Square.
So if I were Central Square and I had a service with the county for several years back, and I wouldn't be sending a bill, that doesn't make any sense. And if I did send a bill and it wasn't paid, why wouldn't the service be discontinued? We have no answers to those questions. Okay.
I would if I was business.
It's odd, don't you agree? Okay. And we definitely need to pay it, and
We have to have.
moving forward,
We have to have it.
So I guess the question is, we've got to do it, we need to figure out a budget time to add it on, but for right now, we're going to have to pay it from somewhere else.
That's the additional appropriation for the $30,000 that is on the list tonight from the 1170 fund.
So it's from their cash to contract.
And how long, when did we start the contract with them? Like what year would have been year number one? Sam, do you know?
It's been quite some time, but I know it was paid when I was in office.
So it's been several years
It's been a while.
that
yeah.
we've been with this company.
Is this one that should be divided? It's amongst three different agencies. We have EMS, us, and dispatch. All three use that same system. It's not one entity that uses it.
Yeah, and that makes a difference on what we do with the appropriation.
And the prosecutor's office also has access and utilizes it as well.
Do we know what those percentages or breakdowns are?
Divided amongst the agencies.
Would it just be
You
equal?
can divide
Yeah.
it 3 or 4, sure. I mean, it's
Okay.
equally used.
Got it, got it. So prosecutor, sheriff, 911, and EMS.
Correct.
Could you look up Zerker and see where Zerker's been paid for?
It was under a different name before. 2016 is when that contract was started.
This one here, the Central Square.
Central Square was bought out. Zerker was the original. It was bought out by Central Square. So
Ah.
it's the same company.
Okay.
Zerker was the previous.
That makes more sense.
Yes, and that was 2016 when it started.
CICHAR,
Z.
CU,
Yeah, so isn't it possible that
there we go.
if we're not showing something under Central Square, that it's under Zerker, and we would have actually paid it in 22, 21, right?
Not for me to interfere, because Zerker's the new software program we got, we spent.
Right, that makes sense, but,
And there was a cost every year that was budgeted for that, and I know going back in my budgets, it was under Zerker, it was under the software program that we budgeted for.
so the question is if we had paid Zerker, not Central Square, then we were looking up maybe the wrong name. I'm assuming you're looking it up. So the question is last year, where did we pay Zerker from? Because that's where we need to pay it again, and to keep that going.
Zerker was last paid in 2020.
Last page, 2020.
Ah,
Pretty good discount.
yeah, well, I guess we'll take it if there's no recourse, right? Man,
Could it be another?
Is there one in between those two?
No, it changed to Central Square just right before I got it.
Yeah, Central Square is not even in our system, so we have never paid it under Central Square.
And Zerker is
Zerker.
2016 to 2020.
huh. So, but we kept the contract services line item the same, assuming we were gonna pay it. So.
Yeah, the contract services apparently.
Right. So why wouldn't we just pay it out of contract services? Why would we need an additional appropriation then if it's already, we were assuming it was being paid? I mean, we never subtracted 30,000 from the budget, is what I'm saying.
No, we did not.
So could we not just pay it out of where we originally had been paying Zerker?
It is already, if you look, been paid on April the 8th, I believe it was, because the bill is due. We
Okay.
couldn't afford to lose the services.
And that was out of
However,
1170.
And that was 11737000.
Well, if
So
it's
it
already
was paid
budgeted.
on March the 8th, but it fell, or when the appropriation or the additional appropriation was turned in, they didn't think they had budgeted for it.
But if you actually did budget for it, then maybe we're okay?
Matt's saying that we've paid an annual maintenance fee for that of nearly $40,000 a year.
Yeah, that's,
And this is 30.
yeah, that's what the contract, I can't remember that was, but every year, we paid that amount every year, that was part of having the program.
I'm not in favor of appropriating another 30,000 for something that we don't, that sounds like we've already appropriated it. It needs to be paid anyway. Maybe we got a freebie of a couple years, but I'm just not certain why we would need an additional appropriation for it. And if it should be something that's actually split, then we need to talk about that moving forward, perhaps in a budget hearing setting. And, you know, I'm not saying it's right or wrong to split it up, but for now, I think, I'm not sure we would need to do an additional appropriation, especially if it's already been
It's
paid.
been paid.
Yeah.
I don't see the additional appropriation.
Yeah. And if the contract services line item is short, let's say for some reason it is, then there's some other problems we need to make sure we're asking questions on, because why would it be short? You know, that kind of.
Why did they not bill us?
That's really odd, isn't it? But
I wouldn't want to ask them for it.
don't say that in it, don't ask for a bill, right?
Is that line item good for right now?
The 3700,
Yeah.
yes.
So maybe we don't need to worry about that one, at least for now.
Yeah, because it depends on it, it's been in the contract services line item every year since.
Yeah, and I know we've not taken it out, so, okay. Well, maybe it's just on this, erring on the side of caution, right? I can imagine getting a bill for 30 and you're like, I've never seen this, you know, that kind of thing.
Right.
Maybe it's good news that all around at the end of the day, but I think for purposes of tonight's hearing, I don't particularly think we need to do that appropriation.
With that in mind, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve the additional appropriation requests minus the sheriff fund 1170 request at the end.
I know,
Yeah.
sorry.
Uh-huh.
She just brought up, if you look in front of you, actually that line item is in the red, 23,000 and some dollars.
So have they been taken?
So it looks like after you pay this bill, it'll make it $23,000.
So why would it be negative?
We've already
So-
paid.
That doesn't
With
make any
that,
sense.
I'd like to amend my motion. I'd like to approve the additional appropriation request dated April meeting that's in front of each council member.
So motion's been made by Andy,
I'll
is there a
second
second? Second by Steve?
And that's for all of it?
All of them,
Okay.
yes.
I will work with Matt and Ryan and try to figure out the exact amounts and was it possibly put in other services line item or something like that. But the sheriff will assure you he won't spend the $30,000 if we don't need it. Is that fair?
No, I would not.
So,
Well, and maybe by the end of the year, we can transfer, so if it was put somewhere else that it was not supposed to be. All right, if there's no more questions, all those in favor? Motion carried.
And I'm voting against.
Okay.
6-0. 6-1. I think that for the next meeting, though, since it's in the negative now, and we have a whole nother mystery set of questions, we need to figure out why is that line item
I agree.
negative? And I would rather have that answer first than after, but maybe we can commit to get that stuff sorted out for our May meeting.
Well, I'd rather have the 30,000 than have a line item in the red. I
Right.
mean, that's,
Yeah.
I agree. All right, I hereby close the public hearing. On to old business. Code enforcement officer.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to postpone that to maybe next meeting, or if they're dealing with the code enforcement officer, is that what you want to deal with?
Motion's been made on the floor. Is there a second?
Code enforcement officer. I think it's
well, go ahead. I was going to hear their proposal.
I was thinking, it's just to hear, we're not making decisions, we're gonna hear them propose it, correct?
Yeah, any decisions would be up to the council.
Okay.
We prefer one, but that'll be up to you.
Okay.
So Susan couldn't be here this evening, so Dana and I are setting it for her. You guys should have all the papers in front of you with the permits that have been issued so far this year, along with the complaints that we have received. We had brought this up meeting before last and pulled it from the appropriation. Council had agreed to do 23,000 in addition to look at law enforcement at that time. We've done some research and found out that that's not necessary. It can be anyone to hold this position with some schooling, some training. So as you can see, and go to the building permit part of things, or permits total, in 2023, we were at 498 total. Currently, we're 149 for the quarter. So that's going to put us at 600 for the year end if we stay on pace. This department's heavily worked. The permits are extremely important to the county, to the growth, the building. So, and on the back side of that, it has a number of complaints that have been called in, the number of complaints that have been visited. And these are citizen complaints. These aren't commissioner complaints. These aren't council complaints. These are tax-paying citizens. And Susan has come up with a proposal that does not affect the general fund. This comes directly out of the storage unit funds to increase the full-time code enforcement / inspector, and also bring in another part-time person to help with inspections and office staff. She takes off this particular month. We're trying to get her off every Monday of the month to get her comp time used up. She comes in the next day and she's 11 or 12 phone calls behind before the day ever starts.
So do you remember a few months back whenever she asked to be paid out for her time, and I said, look, if we do this, are you going to be able to stay ahead and use your time and all? And she said yes.
With this additional person, I think that'll definitely help.
Well, there wasn't an additional person proposed then. There has been different things like that since, but I'm going to hold it to her word that that's, was part, I'm the one who posed the question.
I don't personally remember that, but I'm not going to deny it didn't, what it said. But anytime somebody's out of the office, doesn't matter if it's the building inspector, the recorder, whoever, there's going to be, they're going to get behind in their work. It's just part of it.
Let me ask you, Gary, you're saying you guys want a full-time code enforcer and a part-time person?
Yes.
Two positions?
Yeah, and we're not adding anything out of the taxpayer's pocket. She's paying this out of her budget, out of the storage unit funds.
I have a question. What if storage unit income goes away? How will she pay for it then?
Well, at this particular time, we don't see that happening anytime soon.
Well, there's
Currently.
several different discussions, you know, regarding the jail, whether it's there or whether it's somewhere else. There's a possibility that that piece of property is either going to be otherwise occupied or sold for another piece of land. So that's one of my questions. Where would the income come?
I can help with that a little bit. Suzanne told me that there is approximately $130,000 in that fund right now. And then with the income from this year, if needed, it could be funded for 3 years. But this is also a situation where if people do not clean up serious issues, then there can be penalties involved, and any penalties, any fines would roll into the unsafe building fund and then could be turned around to use to support that position. So hopefully everybody just cleans everything up. You don't need that, but it is possible with penalties and fines and such.
And that's another one of my concerns, Counselor. This is an individual that's going to be walking on the people's property in a pretty hostile world, all right? Is this really something for just anyone off the street, or is it somebody? And that's why, you know, I really appreciated a lot about what Nick had to say the last time we were here, and but I went with it, and I went with it because of the chain of command being tied with law enforcement, because you know, they analyze intelligence well, okay? So they know ways of knowing whether this, you know, person has a history or not, analyzing property, those types of things. Then you've also got an opportunity to pair somebody and work, you know, schedule it together to go and utilize whatever's needed from the Sheriff's Department. Also, you have a law enforcement chain of command, which I appreciate. And now, this new job description, it's got, you know, commissioners all over it, and it takes Ryan. So, you know, Ryan, I'm not trying to put you on the spot here and ask you hard questions, but my question is, for the safety of this individual, is this a viable course of action? The safety of the individual doing it.
I would not send one of my rookies to a house by themselves. They would go with a seasoned officer who has training. I'm just being honest. You know, you deal with the public, and when emotions are involved, it can get volatile. I would send one of my guys who wasn't certified and had courses and had already proven themselves through ILEA. They would have to go with another officer who was. That's just, it was, if I was in charge.
No, that's a question. Regarding the storage units, I have a question. Because I was thinking that, since we don't know all of the proposals for sure on the jail, I was thinking that a possibility may have been to get rid of the storage units, purchase the little blue house, and do our jail like that, which would give us over 4 acres, I think, or close to it. But is there an issue with not getting rid of the storage units? Are you talking about the power, the electrical lines?
That has nothing to do with anything we're talking about right here.
Well, it's the storage unit money
Well, this is
So if we got
self-support,
rid-
this would be self-supportive.
through the storage units,
No,
right?
no.
Okay, I
Starting it
misunderstood then.
would be seed money, but it would be self-supportive with the fines and fees that are collected from it.
Okay, gotcha.
And that's what Counselor was speaking of.
Okay.
I think right now, we have done some research on these job descriptions from other counties and towns, and none of them are tied to law enforcement.
I was gonna ask that question, is, we're not the
Absolutely.
first ones in this boat,
No,
so
no,
what are other
there's
counties doing?
certain,
I actually didn't see any that was tied to law enforcement.
yeah. So if, like we are now, and we're talking about something here that may be a couple of times a month that we have an issue, and right now, the building inspector has been calling the sheriff department, and they have a deputy go out if they feel like it's a bad situation. And we can continue to do that. We're not looking for a full-time person to do that. We're looking for the code enforcement person with training to do their job, and if there's an issue that law enforcement needs to be involved, that can be done.
As needed.
Yeah, but there's not a county or a city anywhere that's tied to law enforcement that we found.
Well, and I don't understand that because that's when I came on board, was because if it was going to be something like that, it was it at first was presented that this was done because the safety of, like, our building inspector was, they were very,
And we can go right back to all that if you want to. We'll put that back on the table. Council agreed to spend general fund money to fund this, or riverboat, whatever it was, and we can tie it right back to the sheriff department. This was a way to save the county some money and still get this person in a position.
And if I may add, so the building inspector becomes a full-time code inspector, building inspector, and then they're to add a second person as a part-time position. Basically the same job description, but they would be part-time and may include some inter-office phone calls and things like that, paperwork and help. So with that, then you would have two people who could go out on a call, and if it was believed to be serious, as Commissioner Burke said, there can be a call to the sheriff's office to see if they can arrange for someone to go out with them at a time convenient to the sheriff. So this would allow there to be two people at one time if there's reason to believe that there could be even thought of an issue, and then if they're known or find out by going there that there's an issue, they can back off and get help.
I read over the job description, and so what is the difference between this code enforcement officer versus what the building inspector does?
The code enforcement officer would have a significant more training, knowledge to be able to go out. Right now they go out for building inspections. They don't go out to look for rats or you know, things that in the
Sewage
house.
leachage,
And
those type of things.
And they only go out to a building to do inspections when there's a permit. These are going to be places that they don't have a permit. There's been complaints or there's been issues that could be serious to their health and the community's health where they would go out. So they're not going to the same places that they would as a building inspector. And the benefit of having cross-trained would help with, and having that person be able to do some office duties would help filter in the extra workload that's going to be had. I don't know what Suzanne may have said before, but I don't know if this was considered, all this extra work was considered part of what she was doing.
Madam Chair, I'd like to ask a couple of questions. One, we do have a health department. Would they not be involved? Why are we hiring somebody and we're duplicating positions? Because we have a health department that deals with septics.
He has no authority. We don't have anybody that writes tickets. And that's
So,
what this person would do,
we're
a
gonna-
trained code enforcement
We're going to
person.
pay this person $43,000 a year, if that's right, out of ticket writing, out of penalties. We're going to go after the public. Are these complaints put in writing? Are they signed by somebody? Is this what we're addressing? Or is this just call-ins?
They're call-ins and emails, and we go out and we address them, and it's
But
things that
you will address a call-in.
we actually go out, yes, we do.
I mean, I think that's a little strange because
If there's a
if they're not
complaint,
willing to come in and sign a complaint, is it legitimate?
it is if we go out and find there's an issue. We're only doing what the taxpayers ask us to do.
Then why, I read the 32-page ordinance. You tie in the treasurer's office, the auditor's office, the recorder's office, the assessor's office, and you tie in all 5 offices here in the courthouse, clerk's office as well, in regards to this. You tied the court in. Is the court online here? Are they on board with all this? Because if they're not...
It's enforced by the county attorney. He's the one that takes it to the court.
Okay, but when it goes to the court, is the court going to look at this and say, these are civil violations? I've heard of these things already before, where we've had issues before the court and civil violations, they wouldn't push the issue.
Well, they wouldn't push the issue because they didn't have this law that they could use to enforce it. Now that this law is in place, the courts have something that they can enforce, and the courts, if you file something, the courts have to deal with it. They can't just say, oh, I don't like this case, and so I'm not going to take it.
Do you see a generation of, or generating of some lawsuits here with all these complaints?
No, I should hope not. I would hope that...
You would hope not, but is there a possibility?
There's a possibility.
Somebody might say, hey, after 10 days, what is it, $2,500 fine? You know, there's some big money in this whole thing. I think we need to be user
It's up
friendly.
to a $2,500 fine. It
It
doesn't
starts at $250, I think. The other thing, Nick, too, is the council, as well as a redevelopment, paid $84,000 to have all of our code rezoned, all being redone. Dana's in the middle of that, Susan's in the middle of that, Marcy's in the middle of that. We as a county paid $84,000 to have this company to come in and do this. Now, why did we do that if we're not going to stand behind it?
Well, I was under the understanding that we needed to upgrade it because the state required that.
And it also requires enforcement as you're putting it together.
Okay, the
Now,
thing about the enforcement that bothers me is the enforcement going to get out of hand?
Ryan, are you still interested in an officer as part of this?
Absolutely.
Okay. So if we bring Ryan back into the picture, where are we at now?
What are you doing?
I'm just.
Is this some kind of a game? I mean...
No, I'm being
Are
serious.
we bargaining? Look, I'm sitting here trying to weigh the different things that are said.
We said you was in favor with it with law enforcement, so I'm just asking if we bring law enforcement back in, does that change the picture?
It helps it,
Okay.
okay? But I also do believe that there's value in at least, you know, a meeting or a discussion with the legal component, you know, to make sure that, I guess, everybody is in line. I do appreciate that sort of thing. But, and the other thing is, you know, I know you said that it's seed money or whatever, but, you know, you did say up front that the storage spaces had, that was a component to this.
Yeah, that's
As far as funding it.
Yeah, that's the start of it.
Right, but, okay. But
And
you're
that
saying
takes
that
pressure
that
off
won't be
the council.
required at all for,
I think we really know that for sure until it goes.
I mean, so, and let's just back up a hair more. What is the amount, knowing that this is a new program, knowing that we've got to go find violators and enforce, where's, I guess, the snapshot of projected fines and how this is all going to be funded? And what will this person require? Is he going to need a vehicle? Who's going to, you know, pay for that? Are we paying per diem? Where's the budget, I guess, and what's the requirements?
Until the program is up and running, it's not going to be sure. You can see the number of complaints and the number of visits. The number of visits, they go out, but they don't have any authority to do anything. until they get trained as being a code enforcement officer. So these may be going out, and if there's something like a septic that can be turned over to the health department, they'll do that. But otherwise, currently, or up until there's a code enforcement person, they don't have the ability to do anything
Right,
to
but-
try to get people to clean up the problem.
I understand, Counselor, but the budget. So the pay and what are the requirements
She's
above?
got it pretty well lined out.
Okay, I may have failed you then because I'm not seeing,
Gary, it's back in the back.
is it?
Do you
Is
have
it in the
the
back?
back?
Question for all of you, who do you think shows up right now to these properties without a cop, without a gun? Who do you think does that? Honestly, everybody here, that's a question for everybody, not just you guys. Me. I'm the first one that makes contact without any law enforcement. Now, if I know the area, I call down there and I ask for a coffee with me, and that's happened. I'm just letting y'all know that I feel that's what you guys decide today, or the money. I really don't care, but I'm just letting you know. You're already sending an employee out without a gun, without a cop. Who do you think gives the first letter? You gotta mail one, and you have to deliver one by hand.
Well, that
Just
was
let me know.
that's my concern, because what
Well, you're
makes
already
this any
doing that,
different?
that's what I'm trying to tell you. You're already
And that's what we
sending
were
me out
trying
there.
to get
So
around.
saying that, I'm just asking. I mean, I'm a pretty nice guy, a lot of guys get the law with me, so.
Madam Chair, we can have service served by the sheriff department. We wouldn't have to necessarily require our building inspector to do the service. If he feels threatened by the public, let the sheriff go out and serve the service. I think it's a $25 charge to the clerk's office. But here's another question I have is, have we took all the storage building money and funneled it over into the building department? I didn't think,
It stands alone.
what does?
The building, the storage units stand alone.
They stand alone, but
She runs the storage
Okay.
units, so that money's sitting in a fund doing nothing, so it was an opportunity to
so how much
use that
money?
fund.
I thought you said we was using, but you're
It's
pulling
the
out of
balance.
this fund. We're pulling out of this
We
fund?
would. We would be pulling out of the storage unit fund, correct.
And I thought we bought that for the jail.
The property,
Yeah,
not the units.
well, but the process of it and the money's off of it, are they not, should they not be funneled towards
Before
the
we were
jail?
paying an outside company to take 20% of that money and manage it. We've taken that back from them and brought it back into the county about 2 or 3 years ago.
Okay,
So this particular department is running those budgets. Again, and you made reference to the sheriff department, and Ryan has made it very clear that he doesn't have the staff to go out and do this.
to serve patients?
Absolutely. Am I correct, Ryan? We've talked about that.
Yes, we are strapped. I've got 2 rookies. I have another one in the academy. So I'm down 3 guys right now that aren't certified. I think I would be strapped to go issue paper without somebody yet here coming.
What would cost
Who would be
more?
dedicated.
This officer or another deputy?
Another
Another
deputy.
deputy.
Yeah, another deputy would be a lot more expensive. This is very inexpensive to the county to get this done. And there's been some talk in some of the forums, and I'm gonna bring Mr. Fry in. He made a comment about pride in our community, about people picking up trash alongside the road. I've heard him say that. That's what this is.
Yeah.
It's pride in our county. And we're not out to punish anybody, we're out to take care of, so we do not become a landfill county, and that's where we're going.
But it bothers me if you'll take a phone call and investigate on a phone call. Now, I really would have to say to you, if you came to my house and said, well, somebody called in and didn't like this or that, I would have to say, you better get it in writing, because you don't have any ground to stand on if you're just going to take it by a phone call. Because you're talking about intimidating people on a phone call? Taxpayers who pay our salaries and cover the expense of the county? I wouldn't have a part of that.
Nick, you were a sitting commissioner at one time, correct?
Yes, I was.
Did you get phone calls all the time about coming out and look at my road, or look at this driveway pipe? They were phone calls.
That might have been a phone call to deal with a road issue or something like that.
Or a driveway
But
pipe.
to send out and to start a procedure that could possibly take a person's property?
We're not taking anybody's property.
But
We're gonna
I didn't say
fine
it.
them,
I said
possibly.
could possibly. The attorney the other day, I asked him that question, and he said, yeah, person property could possibly be taken.
What would happen is fees that aren't paid, penalties that aren't paid, costs that the county incurred that aren't paid back could be a special assessment against the property, go on the tax.
From what I understood, it was going to be added onto their property tax
Yes.
bill, is that correct?
Yes.
And if they didn't pay the property tax bill, then it could go to tax sale and they would lose their property. So that's what I think Nick is talking about.
Right.
And we've got one of those situations right now, and I think everybody in this room's aware of a tree out on Freeman Road that was endangering the public's life. We had calls from citizens, EMA was involved, the sheriff's department was involved, the highway department was involved. We had an individual that had tried to cut a tree that was probably 6-7 foot in diameter that was gonna kill somebody, and we took it down. And if it's not paid, it'll go on his tax bill. That's the purpose of this thing, it's public safety.
And Councilman, if
clarify
the
something for me?
code enforcer went out and drove by and didn't see anything, I do not have any reason why they would actually stop and even encounter anybody if somebody was making, and then, I do believe, I don't know this for sure, because I'm not in that department, but whenever Suzanne has told me about calls, she's always told me who called. So I don't know that she takes anonymous calls. I doubt that she would. She would tell me that, there's these 3 people that live around there that have called in, and so.
And are they willing to sign a document, or filing a complaint? Or they want to stay anonymous?
Most of them give their names, I mean, I have people call me all the time. Sheila, you worked in the building department, you got any 2 cents in this?
Lots. First of all, I do want to clarify, there is $5,000 a year coming out of your storage fund for part of Suzanne's salary that's
Right.
budgeted. So that is part, but again, they have 130-some thousand. Past history as far as being in the building department, when they come in, you do make a phone call or you send a letter in hopes that they'll say, and then you just pretty much you say, can we come out and take a look? If there's not an issue, we'll leave you alone. Most people will work with you. I do know that when you reach the 3rd floor, you have to have in writing with a signed name before they will proceed with anything as far as the court part of that goes. If it gets that far, it would be up to Suzanne or whoever the inspectors are to make sure that they have that information, which obviously you're given an address, so you're going to know who you're going to talk to, not necessarily who made the complaint. But you do have to have an issue documented with the name and the address and the issues of the property, which would be part of that job.
So it's a possibility that it would go through the court system, is that correct?
If it becomes a civil issue, you'll eventually end up in the judge, but that's when it would go out of the building employee's hands to the attorney to handle it in that process. But if it becomes a civil issue, whether it's between neighbors or the county against the homeowner because they're not doing something, obviously you'll end up in court.
Because I would like to have the input from the judges and the prosecutor. Because, I mean,
Good.
if they're going to be involved in this
Good
process.
Madam Chair, I have another question for the attorney. If this thing would mushroom into the commissioners, and the attorney can't take care of county business, commissioners' business as well as all this other, are you going to ask for another attorney? Just to deal with the code enforcement?
I don't think we're talking about 30 a week here or 30 a month. I think we're talking about possibly a couple a month, and if people pay their fines and clean up their mess, it'll never make it to court anyway.
And that's one thing that concerns me, because on one end, we're saying, we're gonna slow roll this thing. On the other, we're saying, hey, we've got a position or 2 here that needs to be paid for, and oh, by the way, the revenue for it is based on code enforcement. And so I don't know, and again, is there going to be a car or per diem? Is this individual going to be armed?
No.
Okay? And were you tracking that?
Yeah, I was just going to say that it may be if the two could not go out together and had to go different places, there might be some transportation issues, but at this point, that's not.
So we don't know.
The building department currently has one vehicle.
Right.
It's not an issue to pick up a surplus vehicle from one of the other county departments. That's very inexpensive, if needed, but we're not there yet.
And so,
She had put $5,000 in for any vehicle expenses, gas repairs, things like that, if they can get a surplus vehicle from another department.
so the other thing, and this is kind of along the lines of what Nick is saying, I think what he's saying is that people are having trouble eating, all right? Families are. If it comes down to clean up my yard, or I'm going to feed my family, they're going to feed their family, and I would expect them to. You know, I think we've got to get creative here and look, you know, a little bit at, well, are we as a county going to pay for every quarter to line up some dumpsters out here and say, hey, you know, let us help solve your problem? Because I don't know, one tire, I was told yesterday is $5 to turn in. Well, you can't even get a value meal for $5.
Well, you're making a good point, Andy. We're going to do another county cleanup May the 4th. We've got another one planned. There's going to be 14 dumpsters around the county. Patricksburg, Coal City, Freedom, just like we did last year, but we're adding some more sites. The problem of it is, those people that are violating these aren't cleaning their properties up. It's the people that want to keep their properties cleaned up, where they've got an abundance of trash.
And that's what I'm saying as well, and I think it's what he's saying as well. You can go after, and obviously you're going to have to afford these positions. But if somebody doesn't want to clean up their property, I don't know if they're going to clean up their property, especially Big Brother saying, clean up your property. Now, we said, well, you're not going to lose your house, but apparently that's on the table if they don't.
But we found with research, other counties and towns do this with somebody in this position. So I'm not sure why we're different than other counties.
What other counties have you checked?
She did a lot of research, called several. Grant County was one of them. I don't know, Dana, she sent you the information. And she's not here, so I can't speak for her.
It was, I think, 5 or 6 different ones that she had sent me.
So I'd be interested in knowing that list. Yeah.
I'd like to ask Mr. DuBois a question. You're doing our inspection. How's the public receiving you out there? Are you getting threatened? You feel you need a
You
second?
talking about building inspections or
Yes.
complaints?
Well, you're working with complaints as well?
I have no problem with inspecting somebody's building, it's the complaints that I get addressed.
Okay, when you go out on a complaint, are you being harassed, threatened, or?
It is not every time, but there's times that's happened.
Okay,
I can't go down Bram Road without the sheriff, deputy.
Yeah.
because something's
Have you
happened?
been down Bram Road? Anybody know what that road's like? Go down that road, then come talk to me. I'm not being mean, I'm just saying, if you wanna know what I'm looking at, go down that road. He's got files right up there that show.
Give me an idea of what kind of complaints you're looking at.
Trash. I've got a picture of a dog sitting on nothing but trash. Trash as high as fences. You know? Graham Road. Alton Heights.
And that's a big problem, Steve, you know that up there, you know, that's.
And I do know, since I traveled around looking at stuff the other day, and I go through Cunot a lot, right, specifically one piece of property, right down by the boat dock, absolute horrendous. I don't care what it would cost to pay somebody to have that place cleaned up. Cunot is disastrous. Then I went and looked at a job out in Patricksburg, and then I had to come through the backside of Patricksburg, right through the town part of that. Absolutely the most horrendous and disgusting things I've ever seen in my life. That is what I think we need to focus on. we're going backwards and we're talking about the budget and the money and the $150 there in the,
Backwards,
Yeah.
backwards, the budget is kind of our
No.
business.
I'm going back to the $150,000 for the storage unit, the money that's sitting there. Let's assume that that entire amount got spent for 3 years, and there were no more complaints, and there was no money coming in to pay for this person. Then I think what I'm talking about got done. Just because if there's no more complaints and we're not getting any fees or fines or anything to pay for this person, then the position's not needed. That's kind of the way I look at it, but I do drive around and there is a lot of disastrous properties in this county.
So I have another question. I mean, if we, we're talking about collecting these fines, and I know several properties, that if you find them and it goes on their tax bill and they're not able to pay the taxes, and then it goes to a tax sale, or that the county, it ends up with the county, we're back to square one, because then the county would still have to clean up that property. So, I mean, I don't see,
So-
there's just a lot of questions in my
So
mind about it.
here's the thing. I think, for me personally, I want to see a law enforcement component to this. I want the judges, and I feel like not only this, but the jail, we're leaving some real important people out as far as the planning process. And on the part-time thing, I explained why I wouldn't vote for that based on comment before. So with that, I'm going to second your motion as a no.
The table.
I'll make one more comment.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to point out that of that $50,000, every year would be $8,056 that would be money that could be used if somebody needed the county to pay to bring out a roll-off to help those people out because of their situation. And so there is some extra seed money in there that can be used to help people get these properties cleaned up. I don't know if the county would want to do more than provide, roll-offs or something, but that's a significant part. If the county will provide the roll-off and get rid of it, they simply need to pack it off. So this does include $8,000 a year if it had to go for all 3 years towards that. So, just wanted to make that.
What do you propose to do about the places that just have rows and rows of abandoned vehicles, like in small lots, like in Coal City?
There's ordinances for that. That's part of the new ordinance. You're not allowed, you can't create a junkyard on a residential piece of property.
Okay.
That's what we're trying to eliminate.
We also, yeah, I see, but we can't clean that up with dumpsters either, is
No.
what I'm saying.
And don't get me wrong, on this enforcement officer, I'm not saying that it's not needed. I'm not saying we're done here. I'm saying the components that I just talked about is what I'm hung up on. I'll call for a vote whenever you're
So,
ready.
you were seconding Nick's.
So Nick, what was your motion?
That we postpone this.
Okay. Till when?
After we meet on the.
We really, I think a joint meeting with the court, prosecutor, I think that's wise, because if this is going to be implemented, we really need everybody on board, because why start it, hire people, and then we're not going to get the process done?
So are you willing to amend your motion to be a little more clear on bringing in stakeholders and committing to?
Yes, I would.
Because I don't particularly have a problem, there's no way we're going to vote on this tonight. There's no way, okay? I don't have a particular problem with the concept. I think it's a bit messy, as you can imagine here in the discussion. There's a lot of unknowns, a lot of questions. I would rather us take a little more time and a slower approach to make sure that the key stakeholders are addressed in this. Nick mentioned the judicial side of it. The other side, which was discussed during budget hearings, and there was nothing really formal, I think, that came out of that, was some of the health-related, septics and those kind of things. And I think they should also have a seat at the table in this discussion. There may or may not be resources that could be utilized there. I'm not committing anybody or putting anybody on the spot, but maybe that's another
We spoke
area.
to John on that.
Yeah.
And he goes out and sees the issues, but he doesn't have the authority to.
Okay, so
practice it.
that's a question right there that there needs to be discussion on and how that works. And make sure that it's more than just commissioners in the building department, it's more than just money. There needs to, and spotty law enforcement here and bring in this person here. We need to have people at the table to discuss this and develop it a bit further. The other thing is the beauty of an ordinance and being local control is that knowing the community and knowing some of the issues that Councilman Wood pointed out, that, there's people that are making tough decisions, and, at the end of the day, you're not going to get much out of a positive outcome if they just simply can't afford it anyway.
Right.
And we don't want to make it to the point where, and I'm just saying this very simply, where people are just out of their home or in a very bad, worse position than they were before this even started. So we have to be able to have some resources available to help people and try to work with people and manage that. And that, I think there needs to be a bit more development on that part of the discussion, just in my
There's a
opinion.
lot of,
Councilman, there was meetings.
Yes.
There were meetings that were had with the health department. Judicial was not there.
I sat in on one.
Yeah.
Was there more than that?
Yeah, there was, I think, 3 altogether.
So,
That would have been nice for
And
us
this
to
is
have
what
reviewed.
came out of that was.
well,
good.
and so another part to this is that for tonight's meeting, we had the job description, which is important. We had some financial information. We didn't particularly have like a written report of what stakeholders said or what the key concerns were. And I know you've done well here verbally to bring this issue up and get this discussion going. But again, it's messy. I think there needs to be a little bit of a reset where we actually have some kind of written documentation as to what we're trying to do, what are the goals, because the public's expecting that. And we need to be transparent as well in the process, because otherwise people are going to feel threatened.
Right.
That their properties are being taken away. Taxpayers are going to be concerned, and I know you mentioned otherwise, but taxpayers are still not going to fully understand where the money's coming from, what the motivation is on the fees. Those are things that I think we need to address. So
I agree.
with your amendment, which I'll second, we need to make sure we bring the stakeholders in and meet again. There needs to be some more meat to this before I'm willing to go further with it, so.
And Councilman, if you do look, I think it's to the second section of the ordinance, it lists all the things that,
Yes.
findings that came out of.
Yes,
of
and that can be a narrow list, it can be a broad list.
So it's in.
It's already been
It's in.
voted on and approved, yeah.
Understood.
Another thing that we need a quick touch on, and then we can move on and let somebody else get up here. A lot of this is property owners, not renters. It's landlords that are letting people do this. And those are the people that need to get it cleaned up, not the renters. Not the people that's trying to feed their kids and paying rent. That's not what this is about. It's about the people that own these properties that are out of state, out of the country, out of the county, that let this stuff happen to our county.
And notices go out to anyone who holds a substantial interest in the ownership of the property. So they go out to mortgage companies and things like that as well. So everybody who has any type of ownership interest whatsoever is getting notified of what's going on.
And that's a good point, maybe, we're all in this inner circle of county government, but maybe there does need to be some kind of other individuals in the community, whether it's maybe from a realtor standpoint or a financial or insurance, because there are other implications when we do or do not enforce rules.
Absolutely.
And
All right.
so that might be something else to consider as far as stakeholders.
Okay, Bob, you had something and then,
Yeah.
okay, let's keep it short so we can.
People remember or not, But down in Freedom, we had that incident down there with the dogs, the rats. It was horrible down there and stuff. Sheila probably remembers, and a lot of that is still down, just now settling, and it's been property up for tax sale, right?
It's been all these years.
And yeah, and it's been all these years and stuff. If we had a code enforcement, the biggest thing is the courts are for this, because before this happened, they had no laws. What they could do with people, what they could do with property. In other words, if Brian doesn't have a law about speeding, he can't arrest them, even though he seems to be doing whatever. There has to be a law that they have to enforce in court. So, in other words, we're trying and stuff, and we need to remember, we've had some pretty ugly incidents within the county.
And we understand that something needs to be, just
Yeah.
quick, we need to,
One of the people that needs to show up for this table will be your township trustees, because they're going to have to deal with the ramifications of people that are displaced in the end. And as far as the law goes, like I said in my letter I passed out, if you read 36-7-9, you'll see that those laws have been around a long time. Okay, so the law's been there for a really, really long time before we came up with ours. But I'm just saying that the township trustees are trying to look out for people that are in bad shape, and I mean, we shouldn't be taking them like that.
all right, so.
And council,
Nick-
just to address that, the law has been on the books, but it's not, it's on the books saying counties and municipalities can have the authority to adopt these laws. Not that they are there right now, but this gives the counties and, again, municipalities the opportunity to do this law for it. So, yes, it's been on the books a long time, but it's been on the books for counties to use and communities, so.
Nick, you want to restate your,
Yeah, I just asked that we postpone it, and I would like to include at our next meeting, those who should be in our meeting, courts, prosecutor, township trustees. And it would be a public meeting, not that the public wouldn't have any input, but it would be a public meeting. And address some of these issues, but I think it's, like Anton said, there's just a lot of things here that needs to be ironed out before we place this upon the tax collector. And that's what we're.
all right, so motion's been made.
So you're saying you're gonna have it at the next council meeting, or what's your, are you saying a separate, like, committee, separate session?
Separate meeting.
Okay, because it would have to be, it'd have to be.
So after the next council meeting, set up a meeting, or between now and then?
Personally, I like it wait till after the election. There's things that's changing in our county.
So after next meeting.
Okay, so after next meeting.
Yes, please.
All right, so motion's been made by Nick, seconded by Andy, correct? Any other questions?
Amended by Anton.
All right.
Call for vote.
Well, if it's a friendly amendment, then it's up to him,
Oh,
so just make it easy.
yeah. Okay.
Okay. So, I call for a vote, all those in favor?
Thank you. Thank you, council.
Thank you.
Okay, on to the jail project discussion. I sent out to see if everybody would be able to make it to the April 22nd proposed joint meeting. So do we want to make an official?
I think we already took action and voted to have a joint meeting on April 22nd. So do we need another motion for that?
No, you guys
Okay.
talked
We
about it
didn't.
at the last meeting.
Right.
It has been advertised as a special meeting, not a joint work session. So if any action is taken that night, we can vote.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
That's how
great.
it was advertised.
And that was set by the commissioners. It was approved the 22nd for a special joint meeting.
Yeah, and I'm gonna request, since we're talking about the dollar amount, project, and facility, property, that there be no public comment. We've already had several public hearings on jails. This is something we just need to hash out and move forward on. like to hear from the council.
Well, my opinion is I'll never support that in any meeting, so.
Right. I understand, Gary, that you want a little bit of a smooth process. I will not participate in a meeting without public comment. Even if it is limited or there's some ground rules, that's
We have to have
fine.
some kind of form.
Right, but as far as no public comment, that's a non-starter. So, yeah.
I agree.
So I'm going to make a motion that we also set up or do our part of the joint session for advertisement, just for the record, for April 22nd at 6 PM here at the courthouse.
Motion made by Anton, is there a second?
22nd, I'll say.
Yes.
6 o'clock.
Yeah, second by Steve. All those in favor? Motion carried. Okay.
And just for council reference, there is a loan calculator document that has all of the financials spelled out. We'll get a copy to you as well.
Thank you.
Basically identifying some of the key variables in terms of interest rate, down payments, length of the loan, those kind of things. Just as a preliminary, we're not going to discuss that necessarily tonight, but that's with you, and then we'll make sure that that's a part of the discussion during the April 22nd meeting. Can you make sure the commissioners have a copy of that?
It's birthday, and then that's me, that's true. Do what I said, that's birthday.
Oh.
It's,
I don't know.
So, any other discussion about the jail? All right, on to new business, Hamilton Center.
They called this morning, there was a family emergency with her, so they asked to table until next month.
Okay. 911 radio proposal.
It is so good to meet you, Sherry.
It's nice to meet you.
Hey, welcome aboard.
Yes.
I've heard great things about you.
So, we understand that you're here to bring California politics to Indiana. Is that
I moved away from that.
That's what I was hoping you'd say. No, I did read that you're from California, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
and also, we're so lucky to have you.
But I've been here going on 7 years now, so I'm a native now.
All right.
You guys have a proposal in front of you. Well, yeah, we're done.
Okay. So y'all invited us here today to talk about the countywide communications and two-way paging system. And before I start, how many of you have heard our analog radios? How many of you heard any radio transmissions at all? So just a couple
I
of
bet
you.
you have.
We have been briefed.
On here, it'll play that. I don't have it.
Oh, you can't project it. Okay, so we, in the county here, we want to go from analog to digital. So when they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, I think hearing it, letting you all hear what analog sounds like versus digital is going to answer any questions you might have about if this is the way we should go.
And it shows on their computers.
Okay,
so
good.
they can see.
Can they hear it though?
They should be able to.
You can't hear it.
Me and Tom, you're getting way too close to me.
Can you put it up to a microphone?
It's a flash drive, Anton, do you want to put it on your,
We might be able to figure it
laptop
out.
maybe?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, Sharon.
And for the ones that I did not get to call, this is what I would like to do with our, the ARPA money that we had, or at least it would help on this.
We've been talking about this on the fire department for probably 5 or 6 years, and just never got anywhere because no one's got enough money to make it.
Oh, there we go.
There we go, he's got it.
I don't know if you'll be able to hear it, so.
That's analog.
Okay, go to digital.
Digital testing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Sold.
It's the same sequence, or is it a different?
Yeah, two different ones.
Two different ones.
10-4, go to digital.
Does this require a line of?
These are 4 on digital.
And what's your location, 804?
First caution light in Montgomery.
10-4.
Very good.
So, to answer your question, yes, it's gonna require putting, up some new equipment at the repeater sites. But it will be a simulcast system, and the 4 repeaters will open up, and like units up in Coal City can hear what's being dispatched down here. And what you heard right there for the analog is what it sounds like in dispatch as well. If there's any misconception that dispatch, it comes across crystal clear, that's what my dispatchers are listening to and trying to decipher. So I've only been here 3 weeks, but I've been filled in on the amount of near misses from the lack of being able to hear radio traffic, the confusion in the field with units going, what's the address, repeat the address, over and over, so there's just multiple issues, and this county has been very lucky that there has not been a tragic incident because of the lack of clear radio traffic. I've been in the field since 1990, and our radios back in 1990 were better than this county's radio system. So it is something that I am going to take this football and I'm going to move it forward. We're going to get this done one way or the other.
Good for you. I agree. And that's why, I think it's, 342,000 that we have of the ARPA funds.
Yeah, we talked about using ARPA money, and I know the commissioners mentioned, if there's any remaining projects that might be good use for that money, this is probably that project. So, where do we begin? What do we do? Shall we?
So, the county has contracted with a third-party outside vendor to come in and assess exactly what our needs are. So once we get that report from them, they're not a vendor that sells the equipment, so we're gonna get an unbiased opinion of what exactly we need. They've been in contact with me, because of the eclipse, we're kind of playing some email tag. So I am hoping to meet with them this week and see what the next steps are, but I will definitely be putting all that information out so you know exactly where we're at in the process.
So the assessment, which we did start earlier, that's still in process?
Yes.
And you're waiting to get an update since you're the new director and you're
Correct.
kind of reset a little bit?
Yes, week 3.
And so it wouldn't be necessarily fair to ask as far as a timeline, because you won't know much where that's at until after you meet with them.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we're looking at, possibly $550,000?
So I was asked to give an estimate of, because we have talked to several vendors. I don't have all the quotes in front of me yet, they're still working on them. we have a good idea of what we're gonna need. We're waiting to hear from that third-party contractor exactly what we need, and then we can adjust from there. But this includes the repeater project, but also changing out the mobile radios and the handhelds. And Chris, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk so much.
No, that's fine.
If you would have said something.
You're doing fine. I want to back up a little bit. Something that happened since 1990 till 2013, our system here was pretty robust, and then in 2013 they did the narrow banding, and we've been fighting this. We've been fighting this radio system ever since the FCC did what's called narrow banding. Some services went to digital to try to fix it. With our terrain and everything, we do need to upgrade our system, and we think we know what we need. That's why, but rather than throw money at it again, we want this third-party vendor to come in and do it, and give us an idea of what we need. One of the drawbacks that's kind of held us back from digital is not having the funds, because once the system, the repeaters go to a digital repeater, the radios out in the field have to be digital. A lot of the fire departments couldn't afford to replace all their truck radios and all their handheld radios. So that's, I think, where the 500,000 comes in. It just depends on, we're doing an assessment right now, trying to figure out what the different departments are going to need in their particular area. How many trucks do they have that won't do digital? How many handhelds do they have that won't do digital? I can speak for the EMS right now. We work on that same frequency, and I'm going to have, I sent you the list today. I think it was a total of 8 mobile radios at base station and 15 handheld radios. So that's quite a bit of money. So
As you're saying, with this here, possibly 550,000, you want to do it so that there's no position out there that's using the radio left behind on electric.
Yeah, you couldn't.
Yeah, we couldn't leave anybody behind.
That's what I'm saying.
And that's-
If you
and
did,
that's-
and we didn't upgrade you, you would just be out.
And that's why in the past, when we put in new repeaters before, we asked them, could they be upgradable to digital in case we ever got the funds to do digital. And some of them were able to be done, but what we're running into now is having to do what's called simulcast. We've got 4 towers in the county that broadcasts the radio signal. And the difficulty and the expense comes into timing those 4 towers to broadcast the same signal at the exact same time. They can't be a millisecond off, and that's where the expense comes in. And then replacing a bunch of radios.
So this is a total win-win for the county, all the services of the county, communication in the county, 911, sheriff department, all our volunteer. It is a win-win for everyone.
The sheriff's department doesn't run on our frequency.
This is all still VHF.
It's still VHF. They don't run on our frequency. They have a digital system, but I think they've only got 1 repeater. So, but this would take care of fire and EMS. So that's what I have.
So
And as far as saying this would take care of it, that's why we're getting that other third-party vendor, just to make sure that, because we can keep doing project after project of what we think is going to fix it. But we're not radio experts. So that's why we're wanting that third-party vendor
You're
to look
thinking we
at.
can get this totally right this next time, and we solve the problem.
We hope so.
We should use
Absolutely.
So this 300,000 and then the 250, so that 550 figure that's in the proposal. If you've not yet met with the consultant, I mean, how do we know that that's the range, though, of the cost?
We've gotten, like I mentioned, several quotes. We've talked about, we have an idea of what we're gonna need. We don't know that exact number,
Okay.
but we have a good idea.
But the consultant could come back and it could be totally different. Or do you think?
It's always possible.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
in
Just
order
want
to
to
be
make
on,
sure it's not a silver bullet here or whatever. It's-
And I kind of asked them to put this together, and it was short notice, so I
Okay.
mean, they,
That's kind of what's.
Just a pure estimate based on
Mhm.
knowledge on the ground, discussion up to this point, that kind of thing.
so we can
Exactly.
hear.
so in order to be on the net, is there a yearly fee or maintenance or anything once this initial cost is? Were you- Jack? Are you saying there is, Jack?
I'm saying there is.
The only thing that would be the annual maintenance fee for the radio, the company that would service the contract. Is that, or do you think it was something different?
According to Dobie, it's gonna be not very, but it's gonna be an expense to keep those point-to-point systems in place and synchronized and all that. Keep them just spot on
All right, so
synchronized.
that's going to be a yearly cost on top of the initial cost. So do we have any idea what that is? Hey, obviously, we're not going to kill it, you know. This is obviously good stuff, but need to program it for sure.
We need to be very sensitive to that, obviously, in the discussion. Yeah, yeah. We don't want to leave anything untouched that could possibly cost money or that kind of thing, or we don't want any surprises.
I'll look into that. I'll do some research on that.
Real quick, we've had this conversation as fire department several times over the last years, but we've looked at if we all went 800. We use 800 up at Cataract, so because we can talk to Putnam County as well. So we're using them up there, and then even on the scene at the falls, we use our 800s between us and then VHF out. And that's because it just doesn't work that well. So I don't know, that was our thoughts as a fire department, we looked at doing 800. I don't know whether that ever got anywhere, if that's still something we could look at, or, because we have all kinds of 800 radios, when we have them.
Problem is, you can't, countywide, you can't tone out fire departments and EMS on the 800 system.
Yeah.
And that's a critical piece of this.
We just can't, or we just don't have the system in place yet?
It can't be done. The tone orange system doesn't work on the 800 megahertz system. Chris can back me up on that, Chris knows that, so. And that's how you get notified, you gotta run.
Yeah.
So, it's not an option for.
How does Cloverdale, they still have to keep their VHF to get notified, I believe.
Well, I think that goes to, does they get to Putnam County? It goes to Putnam County, and then back to them. I don't think it gets toned through their VHF. They switch to VHF when they come here.
And also generally, it's typically like an 800 megahertz type radio, or the equipment that's connected typically costs more? Or is that really a factor?
Substantially.
So it is substantially more expense, and then also capacity or the ability for those connections to be made. There's only one tower in our area that does 800 megahertz transmission, and it's limited.
There's only one in Owen County, but there's some just.
Kind of outside.
Like if you're in QNOT, you'll probably hit the button.
Okay.
All right, so you got a relay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all the state towers are linked together.
Yeah.
Like our 4 towers are going to need to be linked together.
Okay.
So we talked about some money, if the council wants to move forward that way. And then the rest of the funding, I suppose you're here for us to figure that out, right? Or do you have any ideas?
They threw this
I think,
together in
You're
a
right.
hurry, as far as the need is there specifically is what. Remember, the ARPA money doesn't have to be spent right now. If they need to do a little more research and bring something back. the
But we could
commitment of the
earmark it
other-
for that.
You could earmark it,
Yes.
but you would still need to decide where the other 160,000 is gonna come from to pay the 550,000.
So what is the ARPA, what's the balance then?
That
for-
was the end of what was left available that the commissioners had not.
What was that? I don't have that.
342,000.
342,000? Okay. What was the fund number?
8950.
89.
So there's $1,310,227. But there are
There's already
several
commitments, yeah.
earmarks for that, and they just offered the 342 that was available.
So 342,000 left. So, I mean, couldn't we just go ahead and claim that as lost revenue? We've already made our
We don't have to do any of
obligation.
that, But we're all done with all that. That's yours to do whatever. We don't have to claim anything.
Ah, so we don't have a deadline.
No,
Really?
It needs to be proposed by the end of this year.
Proposed?
Yes, you have to, and it has to come back to the commissioners, because we have to.
Just a declaration.
But once that's done,
It
there is
doesn't have to
no,
be spent, it just has to be in
Okay.
a proposal.
that's what I'm after, because
Correct.
if you use it as a direct expense from ARPA, then the federal guidelines have a deadline and a limitation. But if we're claiming it as lost revenue and keeping the money,
We did that.
there's no limit.
Yeah, all that's
Okay.
done.
All right. And
We
then,
changed the guidelines anyway since then.
yes, they have loosened it,
Yeah.
which is helpful. Well, I'm going to make a motion that we take that 342 and change, whatever that amount is, and work with the commissioners to formalize that in our ARP plan for use on a radio communications project.
Motion made by Anton, is there a second? Which one did
Who got that
You can give it to,
I'll do it.
Okay.
Hey, I'm all about this.
Second by Steve. Any other questions on this?
just want your name in the paper, don't you?
All those in favor? Motion carried. Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Want to do her job.
Yeah, and then we have
Yeah.
a couple job description related action we need to take. So, as Sherry has been working through some things, some technical cleanup relating to two positions that have kind of been around, not necessarily filled. You know, it's with respect to IDAX, which is the state's basically communication information system that has sensitive data. And in order for her to be compliant, she has to have a specific person designated as an IDAX coordinator. She also has to have a person that's designated as an assistant coordinator. And so we've got two job descriptions that are in your packets, or, yeah, hard copies in your packets, that she has reviewed, we've looked at, they're compliant. We would like the council to take action on both of those, just to adopt them.
Are you happy?
Am I what?
Are you happy with them? With,
Oh, yeah, definitely. And they're current employees, and so this is not a new position. They would just be assuming this additional role to their dispatching duties. And then we will not have the situation that y'all just currently had where you lost your center manager and the IDAX coordinator before anybody else could get into place. There will always be somebody there in charge of IDAX.
Compliant.
I'll move that we
Well, and
accept.
before you make a motion, there's a little caveat. So we already have a funding amount for the additional duties that are connected to the coordinator. So that part's done. We pay an additional 48 cents an hour or whatever for that. Despite the naming assistant versus regular coordinator, they're actually both on equal grounds as far as duties and responsibilities. So with this adjustment, we're also going to need to entertain action to pay an appropriate amount that matches. So the assistant coordinator would get the same 48 cents an hour that the coordinator would get, and we would need to make that in a motion here tonight, so.
I'll make a motion that we accept and approve the job descriptions as presented, and that we level out the other position with the 48-cent raise.
Motion's been made by Andy. Is there a second?
Oh, I'll second it for Andy.
Second by
I wasn't done
Steve.
reading though.
Oh. It's all that trust you have in me.
Are there any questions on this?
I'd like to say before this young lady leaves that table, I did not know your position was, I thought you was a salesman. I apologize. I asked you this here, our 911 director.
Yes.
I'm glad to have you on board.
Thank you.
So you're a really good salesman. It is a positive thing,
I might have
right?
a radio system to sell you.
Well, I promise you. You done a good job.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are no questions, I call for a vote. All those in favor? All those, motion carried.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Did you want to take a brief break or check it through?
I'm good if everybody else
I'm good.
is. Everybody all right? Okay, let's keep going. Hammer it out.
Did Hamilton send us?
No, it's tabled. They weren't in. Okay, economic development.
So as I'm passing these out, I would like to say, as I'm sitting back there listening to everything that's going on, I think it's pretty awesome that Owen County is having to look at making decisions because we're growing. And we need to increase our capacity because we are looking to improve our community. And that's pretty cool as an observer,
Thank you.
and as a citizen, and as a taxpayer. So, now, the thing that you all have to deal with is figuring out where you're going to find funding for all of these things that you're talking about. And thankfully, I am here to give you an answer tonight. So that worked out very well with what I want to discuss. I'll go ahead and sit down since you have a microphone. Tonight I'd like to discuss an economic development district. Of the 92 counties in the state of Indiana, there are 11 counties that do not belong to an economic development district. What is an economic development district? It is a district of counties that are next to one another, okay, that work together regionally, and usually that means that there's workforce migration. People will drive from this county to this county to work, that there's different, like, highway corridors, there's different things. It just depends, right? It depends on what combines those counties together. It could be industries, all these different things. Last year, we were able to receive funding from Ready 1.0, Ready 1. $2.7 million was invested in Owen County, and we put that within water infrastructure and different Cook project, different things like that. You know, economic development, as well as the county and the town, are currently working on Ready 2.0 right now. We have 5 proposals to look to see if we can get some funding for new infrastructure and new things, always trying to find funding, right? So in my conversations with individuals from the state and from the Indiana Economic Development Corporation, it would probably be foolish of us to think that 10 years down the road, we're going to have a Ready 15.0. That's probably just not going to happen, especially with, you know, governors changing and elections and different things like that. So this conversation that I'm starting with you tonight started about a year ago from the Indiana Economic Development Association stating, hey, Marcy, your county probably needs to look into getting into an economic development district, because in the future, funding that you're receiving now that we're able to utilize is probably not going to be coming from the READY program, and it will probably be distributed to economic development districts. So that was definitely something I felt like, yeah, we need to look at. So again, of the 92 counties in the state of Indiana, 11 of them do not belong to an EDD. Owen County is one of them, as well as Monroe, Brown, Bartholomew, and Jackson. All 5 counties that are touching one another here in southern Indiana do not belong to an EDD for various reasons. So in August of last year, I had conversations with the LEDOs, the local economic development officers of those counties, and just started a conversation. Why aren't we in one? Why have we never discussed this, okay? And because any county that is involved in an EDD receives funding from the federal level as well as the state level for being an economic development district. The whole point of it is to boost the economic development of the community. After multiple conversations with those LEDOs, it was determined that Bartholomew and Jackson County probably would not be a good fit for an economic development district. And you can look at the data on that, okay? If you look at just the workforce migration between those R5 counties, there's no one that's coming from Owen County that's driving clear over to Jackson County to go to work and vice versa, okay? There's enough industry in Bartholomew and Jackson County to maintain what they're doing with their industry and their economic development, okay? However, if you would look at Owen County and Monroe County and Brown County, you definitely have workforce migration patterns. You have industry clusters with healthcare devices. You have the 46 corridor. You have arts and culture. You have trails. You have the state park, McCormick's Creek. You've got Brown County State Park. And that's what this is in front of you. This is a very short executive summary, kind of just highlighting to you the different things that show how Owen, Monroe, and Brown could become an economic development district. Now, you don't just say, I want to become an economic development district. It's actually a pretty heavy lift, okay? There are a lot of things that have to happen in order to make that happen. You have to apply to the EDA, the Economic Development Association, a national organization, and then they have to determine whether or not you even get a merit of recommendation to be able to move forward with that. And that is where I am currently at right now, okay? I would like the opportunity to apply to become an economic development district. Monroe County and Brown County would also like to become a part of this economic development district. You cannot do this on your own. You have to be included with other counties because you have to show those migration patterns, those industry clusters, why it makes sense for these different counties to work together to increase their economic development, okay? So Monroe County is currently working on their county council, their town council, their mayor's office. They're going before them asking for letters of support. That's what I'm here and have been doing in Owen County. I have letters of support from my board of directors. I have letters of support from my economic development committee, different leaders in the community. The entire town council has already given me a letter of support. I went before the county commissioners at the last meeting. They'll be making a decision on that at their next meeting. We just needed some more education. And that's why I'm here before all of you. I have a form letter, okay? And it's on my letterhead. It would need to be on, the county's letterhead. It can't be on mine. But basically just, a template if you would be interested in doing a letter of support. The ultimate goal here would be that if I get enough letters of support between Owen, Monroe, and Brown, that those 3 counties would apply to the EDA for merit of resignation or recommendation. And if we receive that merit of recommendation, then we would be able to move forward with which is called a SEDS plan. A SEDS plan is a community economic development plan that shows how those 3 counties benefit and help one another out, okay? The great thing is we just finished a comprehensive plan, an economic development strategy plan, and a quality of place plan, and Monroe County just did the same thing, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We've got a lot of information there we would not have to do. I was very fortunate in January to be able to have a meeting with Governor Holcomb. And I took the opportunity to mention this economic development district to him. Because when it comes right down to it, at the very end of this whole entire process, there's only one person who can sign an economic development district into existence, and that is the governor of Indiana, whoever that would be. And so I mentioned it to him, and he is willing to go ahead and give his letter of support for this economic development district as well. He, of course, is waiting on Monroe County to see how that goes. He's a little interested to see if we're going to be able to get them on board, which I think we can, because this is a perfect opportunity to collaborate and their understanding about that. This has nothing to do with politics.
Why wouldn't they?
Good question. So Monroe County hasn't been an economic development district for a while because they've had Indiana University. They've had a lot of larger industries that we don't have, okay? And so I think before this time period, they really don't feel that there is tremendous benefit, because the benefit is quite financial, okay? There's a lot of financial money that would come from this. And they've kind of been able to do this on their own without it. But now they're considering it because there's a lot of different factors. Well, you just look at everything that's happening in the world. There's inflation. Enrollment for Indiana University is down. There's a lot of ways that they're trying to figure out, oh, man, we need some money. You know, how can we do this, okay? So my argument to them is, you know, you're not going to lose anything from this. You'd only be able to access more funds from Monroe County. And it would be difficult for them to be an EDD because, again, they can't do it on their own. They have to have other counties involved with them, and they just haven't pursued this.
So the second question is, during your intro, you said you guys are trying to figure out ways to give money and you're so what is tell me how we gain financially?
Good question. So when you become an economic development district, if you can make it to that point, then for the rest of that county's history, because they belong into an EDD, okay, they would receive federal funding every year coming into that county of around $70,000 right off the top annually, okay? Besides that, you would have the opportunity to go back to the EDA and ask for funds for sewer and water, to do rehabilitation within your community, environmental reviews. Let's say we need a brownfield that we need taken care of. We don't have the funding for that. I'm constantly trying to find funding for brownfields. Infrastructure development, labor studies. Here's a good one for code enforcement and also for radios. There's emergency and disaster and all kinds of community facility funding that's out there that Owen County's never had access to, that we would have access to. Community crossing grants to help, I mean, yes, we'd have access to some, but there's more that we would have access to. There's all of these different programs that Owen County's never had access to in the entire history of our county that from an economic development standpoint, it only makes sense for the sustainability and longevity of our community that we find other funding resources. And this is one of them that we've never tapped into.
Okay, last question. Why would someone not want to be a part of an economic development district?
Quite frankly, I don't know, okay? And that is what I will be communicating to Monroe County if they have that question. This is a win-win scenario. There is no lose. Even if you become an economic development district, and let's say Monroe County chooses to never take advantage of these things, well, it doesn't hurt them. They can still do everything that they're doing now. It's just that they wouldn't take advantage of it. So there's nothing that's going against any county for being a part of an EDD. You have everything to gain.
So would there ever be a situation where we would be asked to contribute something?
Yes.
Okay.
So for the SEDS plan, okay, it is a one-time ask. It's like any other plan. You got to pay for a plan, right? Okay. The EDA is not going to let you try to become an economic development district unless you have a plan that shows how these three counties work together. Somebody's got to put that plan together. However, the EDA will pay for half of that. So let's just ballpark it. It's a $100,000 plan, okay? Well, now you split it in half. EDA is paying for $50,000 of that. And the other three counties, Owen, Monroe, and Brown, split that cost. So you're looking at $17,000 for each county. That is one time, because once a SEDS plan is created, that's the plan that you put before the EDA for them to make a decision. And then that's done. So that is the... And again, obviously, if we'd had Bartholomew and Jackson, that would have been split with 5 counties. But again, I understand, that just doesn't make economic development sense.
And beyond that, is there other situations where there would be an ask to contribute into something, either towards the district, regional district itself, towards a project within the district, or any other types of expenses like that?
So there could be. I think there could always be an ask. I mean, right now, if I wanted, I'm working on infrastructure projects. I could always come before the county and ask to see if you want to be a part of that, but it wouldn't be a required ask. Okay, part of the SEDS plan is to create a financial sustainability plan. Okay, for that to be administered. So I'm already working on that as well. All right, because somebody's gotta maintain it, right?
Because I'm just thinking
So-
from like a staff standpoint, would
Staffing, so that's what I'm
there need
getting
to be
to.
an employee, would there be an
So,
office?
Regional Opportunities Initiative, which is the Upland region, which is Tina Peterson, okay, which Owen County's a part of. We're already part of the ROI, that is a big 11-county region, and of those 11 counties, the only 3 that aren't included in an EDD are Owen, Monroe, and Brown, okay? So we're already having conversations with ROI and Tina Peterson that administrative cost would already be covered through ROI, and they're willing to do that.
Okay, but if these other people are approved. So we
So the
were
counties.
paying basically to, and we're saying 17 grand a piece or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
okay, to move this thing forward and hope that all 3 counties get approved.
Yeah, you're right, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's gonna take a lot of cogs fitting all together to make this happen, but, you know, I feel like it was a worthy cause and I wanted to go ahead and get started. I do believe, I mean, and just so you know, I mean, these conversations have been going on with Brown and Monroe for quite some time. Brown's highly interested in collaborating and doing this along with us, as well as Monroe County, and Monroe County is very excited about this.
I think I would like to take the, you know, as the commissioners have done, take just a little bit of time and discuss this among ourselves and come back to it.
There's no harm in that. I mean, is there a
Nope.
deadline, or is there?
There isn't.
Okay.
However, Governor Holcomb is very much interested in seeing all 92 counties in an EDD. That would be awesome, right? He said that he would work with us and seeing if we could get that accomplished. In order to get that done before he leaves office,
Is he
that puts us
willing
on
to-
a
is he
pretty
willing-
tight frame.
Is he willing to provide $17,000 in state funding?
That was a
Is he
good
that interested?
I like that idea. Okay, makes sense. Understood.
Personally, I would like to see me finish up with these letters of support this month so I can move on, because there are lots of different hoops that are gonna have to be jumped through.
Would
And
there-
at this point, I'm not asking for money, I'm just asking for a letter of support.
So there would need to be formal action to join or form, let's say, I'm just being hypothetical. Let's say we approve the letter of support.
Mm-hmm.
You do that, things progress. Will there be a point then where it's going to come back to us or the commissioners to then formally commit or not commit? Or does it just happen? So
No, there's no formal commitment, there would be a formal ask on my point to ask for the $17,000 or whatever that's gonna be. That
So
would be
there's
the
a
next
point
step.
where that just comes up.
That will, I mean, yes, that has to be paid for.
That could be rejected.
That is true,
Again, hypothetical.
Right.
It could be rejected and then it dies.
that's correct.
Okay. So there's no in a little bit and then you're stuck
That is-
situation.
That's right, at this point,
Forgive the
there's,
simple description.
Yeah.
But, okay.
Do you have to, but Brown and Monroe have to say yes also?
that's correct, that's right.
Okay,
I've gotta
so
get,
there's-
I've gotta
Yeah.
get all the
So
officials from Brown and Monroe to be in on
And
this.
they
in order
may
for this
not
to move
like it
forward.
either, you know.
That's
You
right.
don't pay the 17,000 until the 3 have agreed yes.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
That's right. There, unless, and to that point, you don't pay $17,000 to the EDA even gives us a merit of recommendation,
Okay.
okay? Unless the EDA says, okay, now
Okay,
you're
so
good to
you just
go.
need the letter?
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
I just need a letter of support saying, hey, Marcy, go for it.
Okay.
Give it a try.
Marcy, is the town willing to put money into this?
I haven't asked for money. There's no reason to ask you all for money right now. I'm just trying to get letters of support.
Well, sometime if it happens, then there's gonna be a requirement, somebody's gonna have to follow.
You know what? I feel like this is a very worthy cause to bring money into Owen County for the rest of its existence, and I would be willing to go and hunt down money to come up with $17,000. That's you, county commissioners, town, anybody.
Did you say like with the $17,000 that we put in, we will get $70,000 a year?
Right off the top. Mm-hmm.
Well, that seems like a pretty good investment.
Well, I got a couple things. One, I don't think the government gives us anything without some stipulations. So there's no such thing as free money anyway I look at it.
I'm not saying there is, this is
So
definitely
that's
not.
my first thing. And the second thing is, everything we've talked about tonight, I envision myself walking into somebody's living room and trying to explain it. The radios, I think I can explain. The code enforcement, I think I can explain. I don't think I could explain, if I said Monroe County and we're gonna join them, I'd get kicked out of their house. And I don't think, unless there was something else I'm not seeing behind it, and I enjoy everything you do for this county, so don't take that the wrong way. But I don't think anybody I went to their house in my district and told them we were gonna join anything with Monroe County, they would shoot me.
I find that unfortunate, because if we look at the data, there's a lot of people who are employed in Monroe County that live here in Owen County.
And the reason they don't live in Monroe County is because they don't want to be involved in Monroe County. They just go there for the work. And I'm just telling you, that's where I would see every person at the diner I wouldn't be able to eat there anymore.
You may not anyway.
Yeah, but it is not it's not a situation where you have some kind of rules or some kind of regulations. This is
No.
about grants, it's about collaboration, it's about pooling resources.
It's about working together.
And it's not a lot different than, again, a simple description, hiring a grant writer or having a collective person that can go after funds and resources.
Yeah.
But this is under a more of a legal framework within the state and development across multiple counties. But there's still, you don't have to commit to anything, you don't have to go after anything. It's just a door opener. And I don't particularly have any problem at this early point in just doing a letter, because you can still reject on the money side of it. If there's ever that ask, you still don't have to do it.
So.
Well, and I still have to get Monroe and Brown.
And that's assuming the other counties would. So
right.
I'm going to make a motion that we at least proceed in allowing support for the letter, knowing what we just talked about, what's on record.
I'll second.
So are these individual, or is this one from Polly?
I think you could do it either way. I mean, the town did it individually, but if you want to do it,
I mean, so do we even need a motion if we have a format in front of us that each council member can take it upon themselves to support? If somebody doesn't want to, they don't have to.
That's a good question.
Does it have to be unanimous?
no, it does not.
No. You want to withdraw your motion and just let people do it, or do you want something formal by the council?
Well, again, there's no formal commitment with this. It's just a letter of support from some kind of entity within Owen County that says we want to explore this. There is some options available. It's something we want to hear more about, and that's my motion.
I will say, at some point, let's say I'm successful. Let's say Brown, Monroe, and Owen are successful in figuring out how to work together. At some point, the EDA will look at these letters. And of course, it's going to look better if the whole county council supported the effort. I mean, they're going to pay attention to who put a letter and who did it. So, I mean, the more support, the better.
Yeah,
I would like to talk to the counties that's in that and see what they really think of it before I'd make any decisions. I really wouldn't. Now, is Clay County in that?
Clay County is, I believe, in the Economic Development District.
What about Green?
I believe so, yes.
I know a couple of guys in Clay County that I need to talk to before I'd make any decisions myself.
Because Green's in the upland region, and we're the only three that's not in EDD. So that would mean that Green would be in one.
Marcy, you mentioned $70,000.
Mm-hmm.
We won't lose that if we don't, if we don't do it.
No, I mean, you're not getting it now. So, I mean, you're just not, we're not getting it now. So, I mean, you're just not getting it. Right. I mean, the whole point of the EDA exists to help bolster your economic development in your area. So that's an investment in economic development is what that is.
So there could be
I think that,
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
I mean, if Anton wants to vote, that's fine, but
If you are an economic development district
Somebody wants to
and you
write a letter,
actually
they
get
just
that
write a letter.
designation, That is what the EDA does to help bolster economic development.
That's still
And
not.
then you can apply for more funding. And that's not free, that's hard work. All this stuff you've got to still apply for. If the commissioners decide not to vote for it, is it still okay for the council to? Yes. Because they had tabled it to look into it as well.
Mm-hmm. Two different entities.
Well, that's an option too, if the motion doesn't pass.
True. They can still do it. Because it's non-binding. I mean,
There's nothing
It's
binding.
just a
I'm
letter.
literally asking for the county council to give me a chance to try and find funding for long-term sustainability for Owen County. And that might be a slim chance, but I'm still asking for it.
And I'm not against it, I just would like a little bit more information, that's all my concern is. I would just.
With the letter, you're gonna get us information, right?
Pardon?
We don't, with the letter, it's just a letter and then we wait.
That's right.
Because if Brown doesn't do it, if Monroe doesn't do it, and then if they did, they do.
That's still, that's right.
Right,
You guys.
I think what she's saying, I think what some of the others are saying though is, we want to investigate it before we vote and submit a list, you know.
Well, I just, if it's, especially if my name's gonna be attached to it somehow, I want to know what I'm supporting. That's where I'm coming from. And
So if
more than
we-
likely, if it's everything that, you say it is, which I'm not saying it's not, I just for my own peace of mind, I just wanted to look into it a little bit more, since this is kind of, the first we've been presented with it.
So how can I go about getting more education to the county council about this topic?
I think, like Earl was talking, and I'd like to just, the ones that are in it, just to kind of give, get some feedback
See
from
what
them.
benefits their county. That's
Okay.
what I-
Is there, are there stipulations?
I would suggest then talking to Greg Jones. Greg Jones is the CEO of SIDC. He's an economic development district that has helped out with many projects here in Owen County, even though he didn't have to, just because he knew it was a worthy cause. Has helped out with the town, and he knows everything there is to know about an economic development district. Greg Jones.
Did you have an email?
I do. GEJONES@SIDC, Southern Indiana Development Corporation, got .cc, that can't be right though, but let me see. Yep, no, that's it, .cc.
.cc.
G.E. Jones at SIDC.cc. He's the Southern Indiana Development Commission Executive Director.
And I'll say it's certainly not a new concept, and it's not something out of the norm for organizations such as the Commissioners Association and other executives in other counties. It's fairly commonplace, and as you know from the numbers, most counties are a part of one. It's just, we don't have that here in our region right now, particularly because Monroe didn't want to do it.
They didn't.
And they couldn't do it by themselves.
Because they
and have to
feel
be
they can do it
contiguous.
alone.
And they're probably thinking, why do I want to do it?
Right.
Well-
And I'd be more offended by that, to be honest. But at any rate, yeah.
So,
But if it fails, if this vote fails, then I hope that it'll be reconsidered in May.
Okay, so, Anton made the motion, who was the second?
I did.
Are there any other questions? Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed? Okay. And we're not squashing it, we just want to look into it more.
so can I go ahead and leave the letter then?
Yes.
As the template?
Yeah,
Okay.
because I'd like to look at that as well.
Sure.
Just-
So will it be discussed then at the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. Hey, and also, if you have any questions at all,
Here you go.
I would be more than happy to email, talk, have a conversation, come to my office. I'll go over it all again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Marcy.
Can I say something real quick about that? Is that allowed?
We
Normally
usually
at the
have
end.
public, huh?
It's normally at the end, but
Yeah, we usually have public comment at the end, but, what's the council?
it's up to you. You're the-
No objection.
Go ahead.
Marcy's here in case there's an answer.
I thought she did a great job explaining that. Personal experience, everything I've been involved with Marcy has been positive. My business aspect, I just want to make sure you guys don't miss the forest of the trees right there. We're sitting here banging our head on the wall, how we're finding the money. And I feel like she just gave you the book for where the money comes from. In my personal experience in business, I get pretty often involved with government on what I'm doing wrong. I didn't get a permit for this, or pay the man. But anytime I've experienced things with Marcy, she's brought me to a world I never knew existed. She's been the only person in this whole county that has ever been on my side to promote my business, as opposed to, you didn't do this right. So, just making sure that that's the force.
Thank you, Ms. Okay.
Not to be out of place here, but since he got a chance to talk, I think that the letter that I gave you guys on the governmental unit that she's talking about, which is a special district, which is a governmental unit, has a tremendous quantity of power. And if you look under the voting structure and development of their boards, it becomes pretty evident to me anyway. And I could be wrong, but I think the way I read it, you could have like 5 or 6 people from Monroe, and only 2 or 3 people on Owen County, and a couple from Greene County, based on population and stuff. So therefore, they just outvote you. So you end up taking highway department money and building a bridge down there in Monroe County because they voted the money to go there rather than here. So I think when you look at government units, that's what you need to look up under special districts on the computer if you want to. You'll find out that it may not be in the best interest of Owen County.
She wouldn't let that happen with Owen
And
County.
Baron,
She works too
I would
hard
be
for
more than
Owen
happy to
County.
have you come to my office and we look that up together.
If I bring the paperwork, it'll be okay with me.
Yeah,
because
absolutely. You just come right on in.
I know the value of free money. I know where the grants are.
There
No, that's
isn't,
not
right?
fair.
No, there isn't.
All right, on to highway transfers. Thanks. Yeah. Yes.
Take the hot seat. I'm gonna let you get by with that sitting.
Good evening, council. I worked with Sheila in order to do some transfers, long and short of it, when transferring monies out of 1176 into 1173 for wages. I transferred my perf, I couldn't do that. So I had to make some adjustments. They are not within the same series. Therefore, I had to come before the council to ask that those transfers be done. Sheila and I have sat down, we've worked through them. All monies are good that way.
So I'm gonna make a motion that in Fund 1173, we're gonna transfer $114,060.85 from line 12300 to 23700. And in Fund 1176, we're gonna transfer $114,783.70 from line 23700 to 12300.
Motion
I'll
is made
second.
by Anton, seconded by Andy. Any questions? All those in favor? Motion carried.
Okay, thank you, council. Council has something else that I would like to brief you on. Would you like for me to wait till comments or can I go now?
Go ahead.
Okay, council, as you know, I spoke with you the last time in regard to bridge number 61. That is the bridge over Mill Creek, up on Tower Road. I've done extensive research and good news, bad news. One, the bridge is historical, so if there is only one way that the bridge could be taken out and replaced, and that is with local funds. I've worked with United Consulting. They are our vendor, but they are independent from any contractors, and they're giving me an estimate of somewhere around $3 million to build that bridge. That bridge is 197 feet, two-span bridge. Those not familiar with Mill Creek, it's basically a river. Commissioners, council, I believe that is a vital thoroughfare, especially for emergency vehicles, and I would like to see that bridge replaced. That being said, there's a couple of different options. One would be CCMG, but there is $3 million available every year in that, and the bridge would have to stay in place. We'd have to build a runaround, and we can use federal funds in building a runaround. We believe that all is possible. The quandary that I have, if we ask for the federal grant, the call is in October of this year. If we were granted the funds, it would take up to it would take 5 years before the first ounce of actual work took place there. I'm going to the Board of Commissioners to ask that they allow me to apply for a federal grant to move forward. There is a match component. It doesn't have to be paid at all at one time. It would have to be paid at a period of time as we work up to the bridge actually starting construction. What I would ask of the council is going to be, I think, a long process. I would like to apply for that grant, and I would like, Burl's my liaison, but I'd like to have somebody else appointed from the council to sit down in committee so we could go over what we need to do to go forward. So we're not sitting in meetings for hours, so we can proceed to replace this structure.
And the federal match at some point would be?
Somewhere near 600,000.
Okay, and that's 10%, is that right? 20.
Again, it doesn't have to be paid all at one time. It would be over that
So you could finance it, the match, or you could commit multiple funds.
That is correct, but I think.
Budget for it on an annual basis, collect the savings, and then apply it.
That is correct.
As a match.
So you may have covered, maybe not, but where are you at as far as your obligation, as far as what you have projected against the bridge fund?
Right now, the bridge fund, we have 2 bridges completed, and we have to make payment in regard to those. And then we have another bridge other 2 more bridges under contract. And we're good, they're out of the bridge fund, but for a $3 million bridge, we're never prepared for a $3 million bridge. And I have spoken, with at least 2 of the commissioners. I don't believe anybody feels like that this bridge should be taken out of inventory. It puts emergency services, out of the way. And actually, they're out of the way now because of the lowered weight limit.
Does the bus go across that?
No, it can't. The weight.
The weight limit is down?
The weight limit is down. Our only other alternative, council, is to rehab the bridge. But if we rehab the bridge, we're still sitting with a bridge that is 13.9 in height and 13 foot wide. If we did that, that would be in his fire area. It would be tough to get a fire apparatus across the 13 foot wide bridge. I would think. I have seen triaxles go across it because
What's the weight limit on it?
12 ton.
And it would cost at least $600,000 to do that, so.
Yes.
So you need a motion then to?
What I would like to, council, I don't know that I need a motion, I'm going to take it to the commissioners, but I would like for the council to have a committee that we could meet with and discuss how to move forward in regard to the finances. of this.
Aren't there still 2 liaisons for the highway department?
Just have one.
Just one? Okay, because I thought we had 2.
No, just one.
You want to be a part of that?
No. But I'm in a lot of other things,
Sure.
so no. But Nick had been a liaison in the past for highway. So you would make an excellent
We need
choice.
another person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I need somebody else.
So Nick and Pearl.
Okay, well, after the commissioners' meeting, we'll get together.
Let us know.
Thank you. Thank you, council.
Okay, veteran service officer salary.
Are you tired of waiting yet?
Well, I've been here 2.5 months, and as my second time before the council, and both times it said on the agenda of veteran service officer salary. I'm not here crying about my pay, believe me. What I'm here about is I wanted to hire a transportation coordinator. I was on board once before, and when I went over and talked to Maddie and Sheila, I found out that the pay would be $14.26 an hour, where I make $13.97. And for a supported position, that's not quite right. I wanted to see if I could get that changed. I think at one point somebody had reversed the salaries.
And what's that about?
They're both considered part-time positions. They're classified differently, so it's technically not a supervisory role. They're both part-time and they're classified differently.
But I think you probably would have more of a supervisory role.
Yes,
really,
in
anyway.
fact, the position description for the county veteran service, the transportation coordinator, says deputy of the Owen County Veteran Service Officer.
For the transportation?
Yes.
Bingo. Yeah.
So you want to hire somebody, and I assume, what rate are you recommending that they be hired at?
When I was first hired on, I was told it was $11.92, which I think that's actually a little bit low. $13.97, what I'm making now.
And so are you saying that if your rate was changed to $14.26 an hour,
Yeah.
and theirs was $13.97, that you think
Yeah.
that, what?
Just swap it.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to make sure that I was getting what you were throwing down, Dennis.
Yeah, and I think the number of hours, just for reference, the part-time number of hours for the assistant and transportation coordinator is 1,040 per year. And the
But I think it's
veterans
same for me.
is identical. So,
It's not that much different.
yeah, so what that means is if you switch the rate, from a budget standpoint, there really isn't any particular difference.
No,
to
there's
the
no
bottom
that much
line.
money.
It's just his would end up being a little bit higher paid because of that supervisory connection. And then the veteran assistant and transportation coordinator would be the lower cost of those.
I'm gonna make a motion that we make the veteran service officer pay rate $14.26 an hour, and the transportation coordinator $13.97 an hour. It shouldn't be.
978, yeah.
Or 978, okay. And, yeah, that's it.
Motion made by Andy, seconded by Pearl. Any questions? All those in favor?
Thank you.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
See you next month.
All right, soil and water.
Hello, everyone.
Did you receive my email?
Yes.
I'm very excited. I don't know, I know that we're strapped for time, so you may not want me to read my letter. I know I took up a little bit of time last week. I really apologize, Andy, especially
Oh,
to you.
no,
I
think-
am excited. I do have $8,000 in the account deposited that did come from my AFR money / CWI Clean Water Indiana money. That's money that our district gets from the state every year. Last year it was $12,000. This year it's $20,000. I did talk to the powers that be with the state. I can allocate these funds, a portion of it, to contract staffing. And my board voted that we could do $8,000. I do have to use the rest of the balance for other things, the operating costs and things like that. The $20,000 is also guaranteed for 2025 and 2026. I know for a fact I will have it for 3 years. We always get CWI. I am under the impression that's going to keep going up and up. But I know that this, for at least 3 years, I have a guarantee. I'm really hoping, I know that you had asked me if I could try and do that and get the $8,000. And I'm hoping now that I've done that, perhaps, I'm hoping for a match. Anything that you will provide for me for this. I have this really great vision. There are some other grants that I will be addressing to try to get that money. This is something, a position that I would like to, or a line item, that we could address every year, to review.
So
I know that.
I may
Yes, sir.
regret asking this, Tammy, but
Yes.
did we say, or I say, in my comments, that try to get the money and we'll match the money, or was it, if you can get the grants, we'll proceed on? 'Cause
I am not, I will share, I'm not quite sure. My understanding was, because I had said, if I bring 8,000, you said, well, try to do 8,000. No, there was no commitment. I'm not going to put you on one.
Challenged.
I think-
No.
You did it from.
Yeah, I mean, no, you didn't
In
come
that
to me and say,
little
you
time
do
you
this,
did it.
I'll do that. I understand you
That's
did.
it.
I think you left here and we said, try like hell.
Yeah.
I left her how, I'm
She
sorry.
takes that seriously.
Yeah,
Yes.
but I am just really enthusiastic, and even if I could get some sort of match to help me with this, help me to continue on. I will share, I told you one thing that was incorrect at the last meeting when I mentioned my Indiana Historical Grant, which I fully intend to get that. I said that was a monthly grant, I am incorrect. But that will be coming up again in June. I am very, very, very encouraged and optimistic, because this is a venue that they've not necessarily done before, for Soil and Water to start partnering with another government agency.
How much
Yes,
is that?
I apologize.
How much is that?
It's small, it's 3,000,
3?
yeah. But that's 3,000.
There was a grant you were going to apply to in May that you said if you got it, you would be getting the money in September.
Exactly, and that is a clean water grant. See, that's the reason why I'm calling the monies I get from the state, which technically is from the Clean Water Indiana program, that's in direct response to my AFR, my annual financial report, showing what we have done for the community. And then that's how the state decides how to allocate, which county is going to get which amount of money. Now, I will share, all the counties get the same amount. So that's different. The CWI, they have sub-account grants. They have one for staffing, and that's one that you're talking about. I do feel confident I should be able to get that one also.
And how much is that for?
That one, it depends on what I ask. I think I could probably get up to 20. I really think I could get up to 20.
So
Right now, yes, sir.
when I sat down tonight, Anton said, hey, what if, and I'm not gonna steal his floor, but why don't you tell her what you were thinking? Because
I have no recollection of that.
Well, no, any help that you can give me with this, I've never tried to get a staff before, so I'm kind of.
No, I think, if I may, I think that what transpired in March was you had some things that were down the road a bit. They
Yes,
weren't
that's correct.
immediate.
That's
And you had conceptually put together a package of different pieces to kind of make something be a start. And
Yes.
you wanted us to come up with the difference now to get it started.
Yes,
And I think
what
that's
we're
when Councilman Wood said, you come up with $8,000, it's a deal, filling that gap. Now, you did, but we still don't have the grants. The future aspect of that, I hope, is still a part of the deal here.
100% is part of the deal.
Yes.
And I would propose that I can keep coming back every month to let you know my progress on it.
Well, and I think that might be the solution. That's what I was mentioning earlier.
Yes, I definitely
That
do.
maybe, since you have this money now and it's
Yes,
up
sir.
front, because quite frankly, to be honest, I think the consensus is we want to be last on the list, because it would be new money, we'd have to appropriate it from our general fund. We're not adding any other positions in county government, and we know there's a lot of other needs and other departments that could use people. So that's kind of, in my opinion at least, kind of the hierarchy. Grants and other funding first, non-tax money second, and then at the end of the day, look at the general fund. And so if you have already got the 8,000 and there's nothing stopping you other than just us formalizing and saying go, I don't have a problem with that. But then I think we would have to still have some kind of commitment for some of these September, August, later in the year grants. I wouldn't want to just hit the off switch and not pursue those. I think we would still need to do that.
Yes.
And then reevaluate where we're at. And if this has worked and there's huge benefits and you have some other grants to make it continue, and if we're still short $2,000 or something to keep the position going, then I'm not opposed to that. But I just think I think that's the 8,000 conversation.
What he said is I say, my feeling is, here's $8,000, you want to keep it going, you keep it going.
Oh, and that's all I'm asking for. I'm not asking for a long-term commitment, and I did
Sheila,
discuss
do you
this
have
with
the,
Anton
Sheila,
yesterday.
do you have the minutes that we signed?
No,
In
you're
the
fine.
back?
Here's my thing though, if you really
Yes.
wanted something from us,
Yes.
why are you wearing one of those shirts and you didn't bring any for anybody?
You like this? My friend Mel Prather, she, I was manager for the farmer's market, and she made it for me.
No, that's
So
nice.
I'm sorry, it's one of a kind, and it is very hot, so you really don't want this.
No, I'm joking.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
So, the person that we're going to put in here, is it because you are going to be representing Owen County at the state level?
Absolutely.
Would that help you to get more grants if you?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so
There's no
see-
ifs, ands, or buts
There is
about
still
that.
very
So it's seed money.
value in that.
So, and we did, I'm gonna tell you, I'm really impressed.
Oh, well,
Because
bless
we
your heart, thank
gave
you, I
you
appreciate that.
sort of a challenge and you met it, so.
So, and I really
good
appreciate
job.
that, and, like I shared, 8,000 is what I'm hoping
And I know
for.
that.
It's just going on
I
year
know that
upon
you're
year
going to
upon
go
year.
ahead.
I understand. If I can get started to get someone now, because a lot of the grants that we're talking about is gonna be September, November. Excuse me,
know,
September, October.
We need somebody with that type of enthusiasm for all of our grants, to be honest.
Well, bless your heart, thank you. And I'll tell you what, this was a very engaging meeting. I enjoyed listening to everyone, so I will be coming to all of the meetings. At least once a month anyway. So, but I will share with you next week, Sunday through Friday, I am going to be gone because I have conferences. Marcy was here, part of our Ready Grant. I'm participating on the creative convergence part of that. Yes, as part of Soil and Water, but also, I play the violin, which I'm playing in the festival at IU. I know, I'm crazy. But I'm representing Sounds, and I'm working with Melody on that. And I'm also representing Axtell Actors in Owen County. And her portion is to help with Cooper's Commons and getting one of those pavilions, performance pavilion. So I will be doing that Plus, I also have my career development training, that's actually gonna be 3 days. Yes, it starts on Sunday. And then Friday, I'm doing my big presentation with EDC, because I need to get $90,000. Dig out your checkbooks, no, I'm teasing, but for the river restoration project, because now it's the time. And our grant I just received from the DNR, the permit's almost there. These are permits that normally take like 7 months. I applied for this in December, and so
Let me read the.
we're getting it early. It helped that I sent them a Christmas card, I will say that, I did.
Let me,
So, well, thank you, yes.
I just want to read the portion of the minutes from
yes,
last
yes.
month, just to clarify what was done. So it just says, Soil and Water, Tammy Bingham presented information regarding the department and the need for a part-time contract employee. She asked for $15,600, however, is willing to accept what could be considered or approved. She has applied for grants and is pending response. Members discussed hourly rates, number of days a week, and contract position. It was agreed to await grant responses and come back to the April meeting for further discussion. She was commended for her enthusiasm and passion for her position and 2 appointments. She was just named to Secretary's State Soil and Water and IPEA Board. So that's what are on our minutes. So
I know from my notes.
So our banner was not on there, that's okay.
I had written down that timing was important, which we just discussed. Need more detail. I suggested having a chart that outlined the different grants and when they were going to kick in, just for clarity. But I don't think there was really a commitment made as far as funding. But I think that if you already got it, she could start.
Well,
There's nothing preventing her from starting.
That's 8,000, that's half of your year, is that correct? I mean,
We're already.
You could go ahead and hire somebody
Yes.
with that 8,000 and for them to know that if there were no more grants that come about, then that would be the end of their position. But, you know, as you said, and I have the utmost confidence in you in getting that grant that you'll receive in September, that would take care of that.
So do we need to have a line created for?
Just contract services.
Just contract paid out of it, okay.
Contract services. Basically, the motion would allow for contract services. It would allow her to pursue the grant or accept the grant for that purpose. And, well, I'm going to make a motion that we allow for contract services, allow her to proceed in accepting the grant, and that will be the initial source of funding to get it started, at pending pursuit of other grants and our further review later on. That's where I would be supportive of this. So that's my motion.
Motion made by Anton, is there a second?
So the name of the phase in there?
It's going to be contract, so it's going to be based on what she already presented.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
may I clarify a little bit, please?
What's that?
Can I get some clarification, because I'm a little bit confused, so I do apologize. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No.
Sorry. So, you're proposing a line item, which I think is great, contract staff. Does line item need a balance of $50 or something like that, so that's an active line item?
It's going to be an appropriation of the $8,000 from your grant for
Okay.
that purpose.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So I just need to clarify, because I wasn't.
Just connecting the dots, essentially, on that.
I second your motion.
Okay, motion made by Anton, second by Nick. Are there any questions?
Well, she already gave a rate, but it's going to be a contract anyway, so it's whatever value there is to that particular
Yeah,
contract.
it's just as someone comes in, I name them for their services, and
It's not a
set. Yeah, and then as far as the 1090, well, okay, that's a good question. How do we handle the 1099 thing? Because if I was just doing it for me, for my grants, which I'm doing already on a different account for the Fisher Creek watershed, I do the 1099. Since it's now a line item, my understanding is Maddie will do the 1099, is that correct?
You would have to turn it in as a claim too.
Okay, so I would turn it into a claim. Now, since I have $8,000, I would take it out of my $8,000 first, am I understanding this correctly? I do apologize, I feel a little bit
No,
silly.
you're good.
and stupid. And then, when I spend that money, if I need more money, if I'm not able, I will get my grants correction. But if for some reason there's a little bit of a shortfall, then I'd come back to you and say, I need $1,000, $500.
You would, but what we're telling you is, we want you to self-fund it.
Well, no, I do understand that, sir, but I'm trying to understand the aspect of the line item. I do, one of the reasons why I did come to you is I do think it's really important to have the county on board with us to show that they are supporting us also. I know that what encouraged me to do this is when I was meeting with my district buddies, when we have those meetings, and all of those counties have a contract staff position. And it can go as low as, just a few $1,000s, or it can be like Knox County, which no, we are not Knox County, I get it, but they have, of course, quite a bit more. And that's one of the reasons why I was encouraged to come before here and to get that relationship started. So, and that's the reason why I thought if we could even get $50 in there, just so that it shows that, because I can't comprehend having a line item that has zero in it. That didn't make sense to me. No? No, I apologize.
No, it's not you.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
And I'm not.
we understand.
Yeah, I'm not. So, okay.
So,
We have a motion and a second.
in a second, any other questions on this? All those in favor?
Hey,
Motion
thank
carried.
you. Thank you. And
Thank
I'll-
you very much.
Yeah, and I'll be here
Thank
next month. Sheila, I'll let you know if I have something to report. Either way, if you could just put me on there, just as standing, and I'll just stand up and say, please don't get mad at me. I'm still working on it. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Keep it up.
Okay, ARPA funds, do we need
We
to?
already did that.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, additional appropriation requests.
Circuit Court has an interpreter. Additional appropriation, I'm going to make a motion for $240 to be appropriated from the court interpreter grant to the interpreter line item 0232-38000.
Motion made, is there a second? Okay, Nick seconded. Any questions? All those in favor? Motion carried.
I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that we adopt and have the president sign our salary confirmation summaries.
Motion made, is there a second? Second by Nick. All those in favor? Motion carried. Okay, elected officials and department head comments. Any? Public comments? No? Let's limit this as much as we can, please.
Anybody? Yeah. Can we go first? Yep. Okay, whatever. Basically, what all I can say from a public standpoint is that I gave as many in as I had, a little letter, a little opinion sheet I put out. And I really hope that you guys have an opportunity to not only read 156, the ordinance in detail, right? But go ahead and look up those words that I put on that sheet about regionalism, federalism, and government units, and a lot of those little key words, because once you get into these deals like that, if you actually read it, you'll find out, once you're in, you're in. It is really, really hard to get out of it. Because once they start, these boards, these unelected officials, once they start voting these other appropriations and contracts and intergovernmental unit contract, once they start all this process up, you can't get out. You're doomed. And so you need to check it out. That's it.
Jeff.
Okay, Jeff Marks, couple of things. First of all, related to the public service officer, the code enforcement officer. So I once knew the building inspector in this county, who's since passed on, and he told me when he was working on our house, he told me at one point, he said, I was a building inspector until I walked into somebody's property one day and they pulled out a gun. And he said, I walked back in, the building was on. So, what I think we have a challenge with in this county is that we people do respect law enforcement, but sometimes they're intimidated by law enforcement. So we've got to find a way for our people doing the enforcement not to be afraid, and also not have the person showing up, the deputy, perhaps, intimidating the public. So that's a challenge. I don't know how you do it. That's a challenge. And part of the sheriff, the deputies are really taught to kind of suss out who to deal with. So that's the first thing. The second thing relates to this economic development situation. Councilman Carroll made the comment about the fact that if you walk into somebody's home in Owen County and said, we're going to join forces in Monroe County, and you might get shot. It may or may not surprise you that when I walk into people in Monroe County, they say, where are you from? I said, I'm from Owen County. Maybe I'm mad at me. Someday we got to get over this. But my second comment on that is, and I think you guys said it, there ain't no such thing as free money. So the clarification I'd like to get from somebody at some point is, does this money go to the Economic Development Commission, or does it go to the community, to the council or the commissioners? Because if they're controlling the money, then they're not governed. If the money hamstrings the government, then they are controlled. And I don't know what it is. Hopefully when your investigations are figured out. That's all I got.
Norm?
Can I
A
make
year and a
one?
half ago, year and a half ago, you were in the room, you were talking about the comprehensive plan, remember that? This very thing came up, and a big portion of that room was very upset because this might happen, and it is the group that picks what happens to that cash. Remember that? So be very careful, because I'm assuming it's going to go by population on how many people are on those boards. And we're going to be at a shortfall, so be careful. And we talked about this, I think you talked about it, and there were several people in the room that talked about it. So we got to be real sure before we sign on any dotted lines, exactly where does this money go and who decides how it's spent and where.
Exactly.
Okay?
That's
That's all
exactly, I
I'm
agree, 100%.
On the code enforcement officer, a couple of things. I've been a part of government overreach in Monroe County, in Steinsville in particular, where officers, the town over there implemented a new ordinance on how to implement Steinsville, and then they solicited us to come over there with our tow trucks and remove vehicles from people's property. And any policy would people often get is there's a human element. And in that human element, it was, you're coming up with these distraught folks that this is all they have, or there's, that's their treasure, just because it looks like junk to us is different. So we removed ourselves from that, and we didn't ever help them again in anything like that. We will run into that with a code enforcement officer in this county. Another example is J.W. Jones, who flat said, I have more money than you, and I will take you to court over my court. It was pushed by a local lawyer that we're going to enforce this, and that local lawyer made a lot of money off of it and represent. Right, Bill? So, just because somebody has a joint yard doesn't mean they don't have a lot of money and they're looking for the fight. And they'll get it with you guys, and you guys are going to be hook, line, and sinker after they pay an attorney to represent a $250 fine. They mentioned, maybe two fines a week. Well, if they don't pay them, there is no money generated. If they just clean up the act. One other avenue you can look at funding for it, it used to be through the sheriff's department. We bring back the community corrections where they do have not so much the chain gang, but we divert our probation occupants into cleaning the roadways. And that same person that's over that can also be your part-time code enforcement, meaning that it can be funded through probation. It can be derived if you want to do probation or you want to do 80 hours on the chain gang, it costs you money to do it too. I think that's all I have.
Thanks.
I understand the need for code enforcement, but when we put in a building department several years ago, we said, we are only going to require permits for residential properties. And then we said, oh, well, we've got to have money, so we're going to start charging you for ag properties. And government gets started and it reaches a little more. You know, I've been a realtor for 45 years. People will say, is that house livable? That's a degree question. You know, there are people living in houses I wouldn't live in. And, you know, my city friends come down and see I've got an incubator on the back porch and this week's hatch of baby chicks and say, my God, he's got chickens living in his house. And what, you know, where do you stop that? Now, we're talking about economic development. Never mentioned today, newsletter economic development. We have one of the biggest economic development things going to happen this weekend, and nobody knows about it because I can't get visitors bureau or economic development. I have a poultry show, 150 families, 37 states, 1,200 chickens. They spend money while they're here this weekend. And I cannot get the people, we're spending money to promote those things, to promote them. Now, we can promote an eclipse that that flop. And today, economic developments newsletter come out, things happening in Owen County. Not there. We need to do something about what the money we're spending. I've seen 2 buildings remodeled with the economic development funds that we don't even own. Something's got to be done over there, folks.
I do have one concern, and that's whenever we were discussing the enforcement officer tonight, you know, I can remember about 3 years ago where an officer was in hot water because he wasn't wearing his vest. I guarantee you that if there was a warrant that needed enforced and an officer went on somebody's property and they didn't wear a bulletproof vest, they'd probably be fired. People don't like other people telling them what to do with their stuff. And whenever the gentleman said tonight that, well, I go and I take care of it, whatever. Hope isn't a method. And that's why I really think there needs to be a law enforcement component to this. Because I think it's essential to it.
When did that get changed, by the way? 'Cause that's where we were headed.
They took it off the table last month.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
But they just, because I agree, I think the law enforcement, now I'm fully for code enforcement because where I drive, we need it. And now, but I do think it does need to be a law enforcement person. And that, I brought up the question about does a deputy get paid more? Obviously, I know that it does. But I also think we can get one person to do 2 jobs and split the cost somehow in that whole process. I think we get a 75 or 60% deputy and a 40% code enforcement person for less money for each one individually.
And I say that because whenever I hear that this many counties have been polled and none of them have a law enforcement component to it, you know, and oh, by the way, you know, the sheriff told me earlier, you want people in there that can deconflict situations and be able, they're trained, you know, to do these types of things. Also armed. I really, if this is the way we're operating now, that concerns me. That's all I got to say.
And I just want to know what we're doing with the storage. For sure, whatever.
The last thing I want to bring up is, say the enforcement goes out and does his job, the police can do his job, everybody does their job, okay? So now you've got this little quarter acre, right, with all these tires and cars and all this stuff, okay, right? And the guy that's renting the place, he doesn't care, he just moves on, or goes to township trustee for assistance, okay, right? Property over in Illinois, he goes, I don't care, keep it. So now you've got a $18,000 bill for a cleanup, on a piece of property that's only worth $3,000, and the taxpayers are gonna have to pay the difference. So what I'm saying is, there's a lot more money in this cleanup than y'all was thinking. And then you can just send some guy out from the jail and they'll just pick up a couple of trash bags and you're done.
No,
A
thank
lot of this property's got tires, it's got hydraulic fluid, and transmission fluid in the ground soaking up, oils and stuff. But some of these places I've been to, and you've been to some of them, they're EPA disaster areas, in my opinion. You're not cleaning that up for $50.
Now, I want to tell us, I don't want to belabor this meeting, but I'm going to tell you guys something. Whenever that incident happened down at Freedom, there was these pot-bellied pigs. At the time, they were bringing about $10 a piece at Rockville. Whenever they rescued them, they castrated them, they vaccinated them. Whenever we got the bill, it was like $450 a pig.
That's right.
On what they did. And
Big expense on cleanup.
Your code enforcement will also take over your animal codes as well, and there's nowhere to enforce it.
It's a tricky
It is.
situation, no matter
And
what.
that's why
I think though, if we just started on the worst of properties, the absolute worst of properties, specifically, you know what I'm talking about, right there at Boat Dock Road, right there. That is absolute best. Just have one property cleaning that up, I think it would almost, everybody else would say, okay, something's wrong, we better clean up our stuff. I don't think you'll ever get down to the bottom barrel of, people that just have extra 10 bags of trash, because the big stuff is too bulky.
I called over there to Terre Haute to find out how much it costs to clean up a property. I gave them some examples. It's only a quarter acre, but it's just horrible. It's just unbelievable. And I asked them, and they said, well, they wouldn't touch some stuff because of the chemicals, because it had to wear hazmat suits. And then wait a minute, that ain't the neat part. Then they said, if we do clean it up, we got to pay a huge fund to send it over to Illinois to dump it. So in other words, just because you look at something and you say, oh, we can get that cleaned up for $10, it don't work that way. That's not right.
I understand all that.
I think we are all in agreement that this has a lot more to it than, okay, let's move on. Okay, Sheila, do you have anything you want to add on anything? Okay. All right, council, anybody?
I think we might have messed up some years ago when we got away with the transfers, or the recycling center. We used to have a very good recycling center, and a lot of people used it. And it was beneficial to the county, but then fell to the wayside, so I don't know, that's a comment.
All right, somebody want to call for an adjournment?
I'll call for adjournment.
Okay. There you go.
There you go, walking all over me, on this thing on the table.
All I saw was your lips moving, I didn't hear you.
Yes.
Yes. Man.